This masked assassin has a sword pressed directly against our guy's throat, and instead of begging for mercy like a normal NPC, our main character tries to negotiate a cash payout to save his skin. But when the killer makes it clear they only care about their cult, our guy just smiles, showing off a glowing blue orb tucked neatly inside his mouth. He chomps down on the legendary pill, letting out a wild electric crackle of energy. The assassin completely loses his mind, swinging his blade in a panic and launching our hero's head clean off his shoulders. His head bounces across the wooden floor, totally dead. Except, a split second later, he wakes up screaming, clutching his neck in a cozy bed, frantically checking if his head is still attached to his body. But to understand how this dead merchant ended up dodging a decapitation by waking up in a teenager's bedroom, we have to go back to the night everything went to hell. Meet the Huiyang Merchant Guild, officially recognized as the absolute richest powerhouse in the entire Central Plains. Well, at least it was, until tonight, when the entire place was reduced to a giant pile of expensive ashes. And no, this wasn't some tragic industrial accident or a corporate rivalry gone wrong. It was a calculated, brutal hit carried out by the terrifying demonic cult. The masked executioners corner our guy, the guildmaster, who is sitting on the floor bleeding, and their leader casually points out that for a simple merchant, he has a pretty annoying sense of justice. He demands that our guy hand over the key to a highly secure wooden box resting on the floor, but our guildmaster just sneers, asking if they seriously take him for an idiot. He spits back that the cult members are the real brain-dead clowns here, because they can't open that box without the key, and if they try to force it, the contents will be instantly destroyed. Tired of the talking, the cult leader's eye begins to glow with a creepy, hypnotic pink energy. It is a high-level mind control sorcery, and our guy immediately feels the pressure. His jaw starts twitching, moving entirely against his own free will, and he's forced to blurt out that the key is hidden directly underneath his chair. The cult leader signals his minion with a lazy hand wave, and the lackey immediately digs up the shining brass key from the wreckage. The leader inspects the locked box, realizing that even with the key, the mechanical trap inside is too complex to bypass. He turns back to our paralyzed hero, holding the key up, and mockingly asks him to do the honors since he's already given up everything else. Using his dark magic, he forces our guy's hands to grab the key and insert it. Our hero is screaming in his own mind, cursing the useless martial arts alliance leader who swore this box was completely unpickable and safe from thieves. Turns out, high-tech ancient security systems are completely useless when the robber is a wizard. The lock clicks open, revealing a blinding, brilliant blue light radiating from the silk lining. It's a single, legendary elixir pill, and our guy is absolutely sick to his stomach realizing the cult slaughtered his entire guild just to play pharmacy. Hook sequence panels Chi1_028 through Chi1_036 and Chi1_038 through Chi1_039 are omitted here to maintain a perfect non-duplicate visual timeline for editing. Suddenly, a massive echoing scream cuts through the quiet mountains of the Wudong clan. The door to our hero's bedroom flies open, and in walks a stern middle-aged man holding a massive bamboo stick. The man starts yelling about how a lazy secular disciple has the nerve to sleep in. Our guy looks up, his brain completely short-circuiting as he recognizes the angry boomer. It's Taoist Master Chung Yun, his old instructor from decades ago. Before he can even process this, the master delivers a lightning-fast whack right to his skull. Our guy hits the floor, rubbing his head and trying to figure out what kind of lucid dream this is. It's been over 30 years since he was a low-ranking secular disciple here, and he distinctly remembers getting expelled shortly after this evaluation. But then, something even wilder happens. A giant glowing bamboo scroll begins floating right in front of his face. It looks like a traditional bamboo slip, hovering silently in the middle of the room. The instructor walks right past it, completely oblivious, proving our guy is the only one who can see it. He focuses his eyes on the floating text and realizes it's a literal pay-to-win system shop. It lists insane god-tier powers like clairvoyance and martial bone, but the prices are absolutely highway robbery. But then he spots a beginner's deal. Agile movement is listed for just 3 copper coins. He looks up at his furious teacher, putting on the most innocent face he can muster, and asks if he can borrow exactly 3 copper coins. The teacher's forehead vein practically explodes with anger, and he delivers another massive skull-rattling blow that echoes across the entire mountain. A few days pass, and our guy is sitting outside under the clear blue sky, chewing on a piece of grass, fully accepting his new reality. He has officially regressed 30 years into the past, back to his useless youth. He recalls that the glowing blue pill he swallowed was called the Divine Demon Pill. To rip a man's soul out of his dying body and chuck him 30 years back in time, that medicine was definitely the real deal. But as he ponders, a brilliant, simple realization hits him. If he just avoids ever receiving that stupid pill in this timeline, the demonic cult will have absolutely zero reason to burn down his future guild. He doesn't need to grind martial arts, he can just use his future knowledge to become the richest merchant in history. His thoughts are interrupted by a cheerful classmate who walks up asking why he's slacking off during evaluation day. Our guy squint-eyes him, trying to recall his name. Ah, right, Jian Osu. He's the heir to the massive Wuhan bank family, basically a walking cheat code of a friend. Osu points at two other disciples practicing what they call Tai Chi on the stage, which our guy internally notes looks less like martial arts and more like two toddlers fighting over a juice box. Our guy shows Osu a handful of freshly cut grass flutes, explaining his master business plan. The elite inner disciples are all young, pampered kids who have done nothing but swing swords since birth. They will absolutely go feral for a cool, handmade toy the second they see it. Osu is genuinely impressed by his absolute hustle, and to prove the product works, Osu puts the grass flute to his lips and plays a beautiful melody. He loves it so much he immediately tosses over 3 copper coins to buy his own. Osu waves goodbye, leaving our guy sitting there with the exact amount of cash he needs. With a greedy smirk, he holds up the 3 shiny coppers. He summons the floating bamboo slip, staring at the agile movement skill. The coins in his hand suddenly dissolve into a shower of sparkling golden dust. A system message flashes, purchase complete. He clenches his fist, expecting a massive surge of power, but honestly feels completely identical. Before he can complain about getting scammed by a bamboo scroll, a loud scream echoes from the courtyard. One of the elite inner disciples is holding a secular disciple by his wrist, twisting it painfully. It's the arrogant kid Myung-gyong who is throwing a massive tantrum, screaming that the secular disciple's terrible Tai Chi is an insult to the sect. The secular disciple is crying, begging the little brat to let go. But the kid just sneers, raising his hand to snap the older boy's arm like a twig. He mocks him, asking if a mere secular loser seriously thought he could stand up to an elite inner disciple. Suddenly, a shadow sweeps across the ground, moving with unbelievable supernatural speed. Our guy seamlessly slips right past the kid's guard, gently grabbing his shoulder. He clasps his hands in a respectful greeting, introducing himself as Mu Young. With a warm, friendly customer service smile, he politely asks the little terror to let go of his friend first. The brat glares at him, his eyes burning with annoyance at the interruption. He tells Young he can talk all he wants after he finishes breaking this arm. Young's smile doesn't waver for a single second. He leans in, his eyes gleaming with pure merchant greed, and asks the kid if he'd like to check out an exclusive, premium product instead. The bright sun shines down on the Wudang Mountains as a crisp whistle cuts through the air. High up on the cliffside, a mysterious figure in elegant blue robes turns around, drawn by the sound. He steps forward, his boots clicking softly against the stone path. He looks down at the courtyard below, watching the secular disciples' area. Down on the ground, the title card drops as the high-pitched tune of the grass flute continues to play. Our guy, Young, is blowing into the leaf, realizing it's actually pretty hard to play it as well as Osu did. But his terrible performance is more than enough to completely captivate the kids standing in front of him. Myung-gyong and his friends are staring with wide, sparkly eyes, completely mesmerized. The brat let go of the other disciple's arm ages ago and is now practically begging to try it. Young pulls the leaf away, claiming that once a flute touches someone's lips, it loses its premium value. But he flashes a bright, dazzling smile, holding up a brand new, untouched grass flute. He announces that the standard retail price is 5 copper nyang, but since he's feeling generous, he'll let it go for a bargain price of 3. The kid's excited faces instantly deflate, turning into awkward, sweating grimaces. Young's smile falters, his inner business radar sensing that something is very wrong with this reaction. Hoping to close the sale, he quickly offers a special bundle discount if they buy in bulk. But Myung-gyong looks down, playing with his fingers, and mutters that they don't actually carry cash. The other kids start tearing up, asking if they can buy the flutes on credit or trade something else for them. Hui Young lets out a silent, exhausted sigh, realizing that literal children raised on a remote mountain obviously don't have pocket money. He looks at the elite disciples practicing their swordplay in the distance, reminding himself of his actual goal. He doesn't care about their literal pennies, he wants to build connections with the future powerhouses of the sect. He puts on a grand, respectful display, handing the grass flute over to Myung-gyung as a free gift. He tells the boy it's an absolute honor to present it to a brilliant main sect disciple of the Wudong clan. The kid's chest puffs up with immense pride, and he gratefully accepts the toy. Hui Young smirks internally, remembering that in his past life, this little kid grew up to be the invincible Taiji sword. Securing a favor from a future god-tier martial artist for the price of a single piece of grass? That is what we call an absolute W trade. Suddenly, a razor-sharp sword blade flashes through the air, stopping millimeters from Hui Young's throat. A cold, furious voice demands to know who he is and why he's bewitching the young disciples with cheap tricks. Hui Young stares at the handsome, long-haired master standing behind the kids, internally complaining that martial artists always jump straight to murder. Myung-gyung drops his flute, trembling and tearing up at the sudden, terrifying tension. Hui Young grits his teeth, annoyed that these meatheads think anything other than swinging swords is trash. He casually steps back, crossing his arms, and asks if enjoying a simple, peaceful tune is suddenly a crime in Wudang. The master's eyes narrow with dangerous intensity, and he asks what a mere secular disciple just said to him. Hui Young drops some ancient poetic bars, comparing the mind to an archer aiming at a target. He states that the target never moves, it's only the archer's doubtful mind that wavers. He looks the master dead in the eye, asking if a simple grass flute is really enough to shake a true master's focus. The master stares at the drop blade of grass on the stone floor, completely silent. Then, the master's face goes completely dark, and an explosive, roaring blue aura erupts from his body. The sheer weight of the pressure crushes the air in the courtyard as he asks if Hui Young is insolently mocking the Wudong clan. Hui Young's stomach feels like it's doing backflips, but his sharp mind keeps him upright. He knows the Wudong clan is a righteous sect. No matter how mad they get, they won't murder a kid over a leaf. He clasps his hands together, bowing deeply into the crushing pressure. He shouts that even if a massive storm blows, a tree cannot simply step out of its way. He says he will only move forward, praying his resolve won't break. Suddenly, the crushing pressure vanishes and the master bursts into a hearty, cheerful laugh. He praises Hui Young's incredible spirit for standing firm against his aura subjugation. The master reaches into his robes, declaring that a grass flute is indeed a fine form of entertainment and offers to buy all 15 of them. Hui Young's eyes instantly light up with dollar signs, and he cheerfully quotes the total price of 75 copper nyang. The master asks about the special bundle discount he mentioned earlier, but Hui Young shamelessly replies that the discount is strictly for minors. The master chuckles at his absolute greed, calling him a ridiculous brat, and pulls out a crisp paper slip. He hands over a 100 nyang banking slip, telling him to keep the change as compensation for the scary pressure test. Hui Young happily pockets the cash, while the little disciples in the background immediately start happily blowing their flutes. Hui Young politely asks the master for his Taoist name, realizing he should probably know who just funded his next upgrade. The handsome master smiles gently and reveals his name, Manhwa. A massive, epic background graphic appears behind him, detailing his legendary title, the Limitless Divine Sword. He is currently one of the top 5 strongest masters in the entire Wudong clan, destined to become a titan of the martial world. Hui Young's jaw drops, and he instantly switches into extreme comical customer service politeness, bowing and scraping in a panic. Manhwa chuckles, asking if the arrogant brat finally understands who he was talking back to. Hui Young keeps his head bowed but calmly responds that while Wudong has its noble ways, a merchant must always stick to the way of the merchant. Manhwa smirks, thoroughly entertained by this utterly shameless kid. He waves his hand, walking away with his disciples while laughing that the brat just had to get the last word in. Hui Young lets out a massive sigh of relief, wiping the cold sweat from his forehead. Another secular disciple runs up, looking at him like he's a literal god for talking back to a legendary master and living to tell the tale. Hui Young smiles, thinking he's successfully navigated his first massive hurdle in this new life. But his smile instantly vanishes as a massive shadow looms over him and a booming voice calls out his name. He turns around to see a massive bald bully with a predatory grin looking down at him. It's Sagong Hyun, the worst scum among the lay disciples, and the exact villain who got our guy expelled in his past life. So, the bald fraud himself has finally decided to show his face. Sagong Hyun steps up looking like a discount raid boss, asking if our guy is connected to some big-name powerhouse. Hui Young puts on his best innocent face and tells him he is just a regular kid from a farming family. The bully instantly loses all respect and puts on a very punchable, smug grin. He offers his hand for a friendly little deal, which is basically the ancient Murim version of paying protection money. Look at that hand. That is the hand of a guy who has never worked a real day in his life. Our guy remembers this exact hand. In his past life, he actually took it because he was young, desperate, and had zero backing. He thought it was the opportunity of a lifetime. Until the actual worst day of his youth happened. The strict instructor, Chung Yoon, stormed into the courtyard holding a suspicious black bag and dumped out a mountain of highly questionable adult-rated spring pictures right on the floor. Every single disciple in the crowd immediately started gossiping like a high school drama club. Hui Young knew exactly whose collection that was. It belonged to the bald bully standing right next to him. The bully had refused to even lend them to him back then, so Hui Young originally thought karma was finally hitting, except the instructor pointed a finger straight at our guy and announced they were found in his room. The bald fraud was standing in the back whistling like a cartoon character while Hui Young panicked. The instructor did not care about explanations and expelled our guy on the spot, ruining his life and sending him out to starve. He had to struggle in the mud for years because of that setup, so when the bully offers his hand in the present day, Hui Young slaps it away with a very satisfying smack. He looks him dead in the eye and tells him his offer is absolute garbage. The bully is stunned. Hui Young asks him if playing King of the Mountain makes him feel special, just because he knows a few moves. He drops the truth that the bully's dad is just a minor, irrelevant sect leader and that acting tough is not working, and finishes it off by telling him to grow up, Baldy. The bully steps forward, his boots dragging on the stone. He gets right in Hui Young's face, telling him he must have a massive death wish to talk to him like that. Hui Young just gives him the most disrespectful, smug grin you have ever seen. He asks if they should just duke it out right here and get expelled together. The bully realizes he cannot win this argument because our guy literally does not care about being here. He backs off with a weak warning to watch his back. He walks away looking incredibly annoyed, and Hui Young actually feels disappointed he did not get a fight out of it to secure a quick exit. He calculates the timeline. In his past life, the expulsion happened a month later, but he wants to speedrun his exit now. If he cannot get expelled for fighting, he has to find a creative way to fail the upcoming secular disciple evaluation. His friend Osu runs up to him, looking highly concerned. He asks what Hui Young is going to do if the random bracket matches him against the giant bald bully. Hui Young shrugs it off, saying he will deal with it when it happens, looking completely relaxed. But internally, he knows exactly what the bracket looks like because he lived it once already. His opponent in the original timeline was one of the bully's small-time lackeys who beat him to a pulp. As long as nothing changes, he can just take a dive, look pathetic, and get escorted off the mountain. He is holding a secret weapon just in case. The evaluation begins. The secular disciples are trading very slow, very sad punches in the courtyard. Instructor Chung Yoon looks like he would rather be literally anywhere else on Earth. Then a voice behind him notes that things have started. It is Manhwa, the absolute legend himself, dropping by to check out the new recruits. Chung Yoon sighs and tells him none of these kids are worth a single second of his attention. Changhwa asks if the matches are truly random, and the instructor admits he has been tweaking the brackets behind the scenes. Changhwa looks out at the balcony and sees our guy chilling in the back, casually eating a grass flute while everyone else is sweating. He crosses his arms, a very dangerous idea forming in his head. He asks the instructor if he can fiddle with the next matchup, and Chung Yoon blindly agrees to let him do whatever he wants. Osu is playing a terrible tune next to Hui Young, who is just waiting for his easy loss to be announced. The instructor calls out the next matchup, starting with Mook Hui Young. Hui Young waves to Osu and says he will be right back after his quick defeat. He walks down the steps with absolute confidence that he is about to secure his freedom, and the instructor announces his opponent is Sagong Hyun. Hui Young freezes. He looks up at the balcony and sees Changhwa looking back at him with the most cheerful, evil smile imaginable. That guy definitely rigged the bracket just to see what would happen. The instructor yells for the fight to start. The bully smiles like a kid on Christmas, thinking his prey delivered itself. He charges forward like a freight train, yelling about how our guy should have watched his back. He leaps into the air, aiming a massive fist straight at Huiyang's head. Huiyang barely slips backward, realizing his nice, peaceful plan of losing to a weakling has been entirely deleted. But as a master merchant, when a deal changes, you change your strategy. He squeezes the small black bag in his fist and throws a handful of pure pocket sand straight into the bully's eyes. The bully screeches in agony. The entire balcony goes completely silent at the sheer disrespect of the move. Huiyang does not waste a second. He steps in with a massive smile, ready to finish this. The bully swings blindly, but Huiyang easily ducks under the massive arm. He uses the basic 3 disaster style and lands a clean, heavy punch right under the bully's chin. He follows up with a second punch to the face, completely shifting the bully's center of gravity. But as he lands the hit, Huiyang realizes something is very wrong with his own body. It feels incredibly light. Before he can process it, a massive, thick hand clamps down tightly around his wrist. The bully slams him onto the stone floor with a heavy impact. Huiyang groans, realizing he got too excited and stayed in close range for too long. The bully wipes the blood from his mouth, his eyes literally glowing with pure rage. He tells our guy he is going to end him right here, and Huiyang realizes he might have miscalculated the danger levels. The bully is standing over him, covered in dust and blood, looking like a very angry potato. Our guy is still lying on the floor, smiling because he knows he just violated every single rule of honorable martial arts. Up on the balcony, Instructor Chungyun is absolutely losing his mind, screaming about dirty, unorthodox tricks. He is about to jump down and stop the fight himself, but a hand suddenly stops him. It is Manhwa, looking completely unbothered by the pocket sand strategy. He tells his junior brother to just sit back and watch a little longer. He notes that our guy seems to have a very specific plan in mind. Down in the dirt, the bully winds up a massive stomp aimed straight at Huiyang's ribs. Huiyang rolls out of the way just in time as the bully's foot completely shatters the stone tiles beneath them. Our guy slides back into a low stance, his heart beating out of his chest. The bully follows up with a massive, high-speed swing, but Huiyang's eyes track the movement perfectly. His feet shift on the stone floor without him even thinking about it. He ducks clean under the giant fist and lands another perfect counterpunch right to the bully's cheek. Our guy is staring at his own hand in absolute shock, wondering what just happened. He only learned the basic 3 disaster style on paper, but his body is executing the moves like a veteran of 20 years. Then he remembers the magical bamboo slip and the agile movement skill he bought for literally 3 copper coins. The bully screams in frustration and launches a barrage of heavy, wild swings. Huiyang realizes that a single cheap purchase from the system has completely rewritten his physical limits. He slips inside the bully's guard and lands a massive straight punch directly to his nose, drawing a spray of blood. The bald fraud collapses backward, dazed and drooling onto the pavement. Huiyang has the biggest, most villainous grin on his face. The pay-to-win system is actually broken. He realizes that if money equals instant strength in this world, he needs to get off this mountain and start his merchant empire immediately. But the bully is not done yet. He slowly pushes himself up, wiping the spit from his chin, declaring his revenge. Huiyang feels the air go cold. The bully's presence is shifting into something dangerous. The bully exhales a massive cloud of white steam, channeling his internal energy. He moves with 3 times his previous speed, his fist creating shockwaves as Huiyang is forced onto the defensive. Huiyang's boots skid across the stone. He is running out of space to run. The bully raises a massive fist, ready to deliver a blow that will probably break several of our guy's bones. He has a psychotic smile on his face, knowing he has cornered his prey. Huiyang realizes that without any internal energy of his own, his cheap agile movements are not going to save him from a direct hit. Suddenly, a sleek wooden scabbard drops out of nowhere and blocks the bully's fist with a sharp crack. Manhwa has stepped down from the balcony, looking incredibly elegant as he stands between them. He looks at the bully with cold eyes, asking him if he has no shame for using internal energy against a total beginner. The bully panics, pointing at Huiyang and screaming that our guy threw a sandbag first. Manhwa glances back at Huiyang, admitting that is indeed a fair point. But he turns back to the bully and tells him resorting to the tricks of a street thug makes the entire Wudong sect look terrible. He tells Huiyang to stand by while he decides on an appropriate punishment. Hui Young happily accepts. The instructor steps up and officially calls an end to the secular disciple evaluation. Changhua walks away, looking highly pleased with how his little experiment turned out. Our guy is celebrating internally, throwing a quiet fist pump. He managed to humiliate his worst enemy, look like a massive cheater, and secure an absolute guaranteed ticket out of the sect. He looks up at the moon, already planning what kind of luxury products he is going to sell first once he leaves tomorrow. But back in the main pavilion, Changhua is looking very thoughtful. Chungyun asks him if he is all right, and Changhua says he is better than ever. The instructor demands they kick Hui Young out immediately for using pocket sand and bringing shame to the mountain. Changhua is silent for a long moment, closing his eyes. He asks his junior brother if he actually paid attention to how the kid was moving. He points out that Hui Young only learned the basic style a few days ago, and yet his dodging and counterattacks were completely flawless, which means the kid is a hidden martial arts prodigy. Chungyun argues that rules are rules and some sort of punishment is absolutely required. Xianghua agrees and smiles, suggesting a very specific kind of punishment. The next morning, the instructor announces that Mook Hui Young will be serving in the Gokshan Pavilion as his punishment. He tells him to be incredibly grateful for Chunghua's merciful consideration. The instructor walks away muttering about why they did not just kick the kid out, leaving Hui Young standing there. Hui Young's soul has basically left his body. He is not getting expelled. He grabs his hair and screams internally, wondering why they kicked him out for pictures in his past life but are keeping him for throwing sand. His entire master plan has been completely derailed by a handsome master who thinks he is helping. Osu runs up and pats him on the back, telling him it is a massive relief and that he should aim to become an inner disciple now. Hui Young looks at him like he just spoke in ancient riddles. He notes that he has absolutely zero real talent for martial arts, remembering how he failed to learn anything in his first life. He pulls up the system interface, looking at the heavy prices for actual high-tier talents that he cannot afford yet. He lets out a massive sigh and decides to accept his fate for the moment. He waves goodbye to Osu and heads towards the Gokjan Pavilion. He accepts that getting kicked out early is a lost cause, so he needs to find a new angle. He arrives at the heavy gates of the Gokshan Pavilion, realizing this is the place that handles all of Wudong's wealth. He decides he will just skim some cash off the top instead. He opens the sliding doors and freezes when he sees a very familiar, very handsome face smiling back at him. He asks Changhua if he is actually an elder of the financial department. Changhua explains he belongs to a different division, but his close senior runs this place, so he secured Hui Young a job as a messenger. He explains that Hui Young will have to carry financial documents to every single pavilion on the massive mountain, which requires climbing straight up rock walls for 4 hours. He tells him not to worry because he is just an extra set of hands, and tells our guy to follow him so he can teach him the massive geography of the mountain. Hui Young's face goes completely pale as he realizes he is absolutely doomed. That night, Hui Young is in his room packing his bags in a panic. The mountain has over 10 divisions, and some are built on literal cliffs. He decides he is not going to end his second chance at life by falling off a cliff because of a delivery job. He sneaks out into the hallway, his boots quiet on the floor. He runs past the main courtyard under the cover of darkness, and sprint escapes through the front gates, deciding a midnight run is the only logical answer. The moon is high, the air is quiet, and the scene is set for a flawless tactical retreat. Our guy steps out of the lodging, already overthinking his life choices before he even reaches the gate. He looks around and realizes the Wudong mountain paths at night are pitch black. He checks his private pay-to-win menu, wishing he could buy the night vision upgrade for 80 yang, but the shop has a very strict cash-only policy. No vouchers allowed. With zero cash on hand, he is forced to use the most high-tech stealth tool available, a massive, blazing torch. He knows this makes him look like a walking target, but dying to a random cliff slip in Chapter 5 is not the legacy he wants. He smiles, trying to convince himself that the mountain is way too big for anyone to spot him. He takes 3 steps and walks directly into the night patrol. Immediately, a sword is drawn and Hui Young instantly activates his ultimate technique, lying through his teeth. He tells them he is just an innocent herb gatherer who took a nice, peaceful nap and woke up in the dark. The guard looks at him like he is the worst liar on the mountain, so Hui Young pulls out his proof. Look at this. He literally just grabbed a handful of random weeds from the side of the path. The guards stare at the leaves, then look at each other, realizing they do not get paid enough to identify local flora. Our guy is sweating buckets, hoping these two did not major in botany. Luckily, they decide it is not their problem. They hand back his torch and tell him to be careful on the way down. He bolts down the stairs, celebrating his high-level negotiation skills. The main gate is right there. He is convinced nothing can stop his glorious return to the merchant life now. And then, a voice calls his name from the shadows. That incredibly familiar, deeply annoying voice that has been ruining his plans for 3 chapters now. Manhwa steps into the light, wearing a smile that says he has been waiting here for 2 hours. He stands there, looking majestic, completely blocking the path. Our guy looks like he wants to dissolve into the floor. He asks him how on earth he knew he was going to try to run away tonight. Manhwa chuckles, explaining that a master's eyes see right through amateur schemes. He says the human face does not lie, especially when the muscles are twitching with the urge to escape. Huyang prepares for the worst, asking what the master plans to do with him now. Manhwa looks at him, his expression turning slightly serious for once. He asks why someone with so much potential wants to leave a prestigious sect that thousands of people would die to join. Our guy tries to play it off, saying the final test to become an official disciple is way too hard and he would just fail anyway. He claims he knows his own limits and simply does not have the talent to survive in the martial world. Manhwa just stares at him, completely unconvinced by the self-deprecation. He tells him his lies are pathetic, especially since they both know what he did during the evaluation. He looks at him gently, telling him to speak honestly because his talent is actually undeniable. Huyang facepalms internally, realizing he cannot exactly explain that his talent is a digital shopping cart. So, he decides to pivot to a completely different type of lie. He strikes a dramatic pose and tells the master that the Wudong sect is simply too small of a vessel to contain his greatness. The silence in the courtyard is deafening. Our guy immediately starts sweating, wondering if he just crossed the line into getting executed for disrespect. He checks on the master, who is currently trembling and making strange noises. Manhwa bursts into a massive laugh, telling him he finally understands exactly what kind of kid he is dealing with. Huyang's eyes light up, thinking this arrogant speech actually worked and he is free to go. Manhwa looks at him and says no. He explains that as a true master of Wudong, he cannot let someone with that much ambition leave without showing him what the sect is truly capable of. He slowly draws his blade, the steel reflecting the moonlight. He tells him he is going to show him the true essence of Wudong. A sudden wind pressure kicks up, nearly blowing the torch right out of Huyang's hand. The atmosphere shifts and the air feels incredibly heavy. Manhwa leaps into the air, his blue robes flowing like water. A massive glowing circle of energy begins to form on the stone floor around them. He tells our guy to watch very carefully. He takes a step, and the ground itself seems to ripple. He begins to move, his sword drawing flawless, glowing blue trails through the dark air. Huyang is completely frozen, his eyes wide as he watches the display. The movements are incredibly gentle, flowing like a calm, quiet river, but in the next second, they turn incredibly fierce, matching the raw speed of a storm. It is a perfect cycle of soft and hard energy, never stopping, never losing momentum. This is the absolute pinnacle of Wudong's martial philosophy. The Taiji Wisdom Sword. A massive, perfect yin-yang symbol of pure energy glows brightly across the entire courtyard floor. Our guy stands there, completely speechless, staring at the sheer scale of the power. Manhwa sheathes his sword with a smug smile, asking if he understands the depth of the sect now. Huyang looks at him, his face blank, and notes that while the light show was very cool, he still has absolutely no idea what he is supposed to do with any of that. Manhwa keeps his smug grin, asking one more time if the lesson finally sank in. Our guy is still standing there, completely unbothered by the spiritual awakening. He admits he has one massive question about this entire presentation. The master sheathes his sword with a satisfying click, expecting a deep philosophical question about the path of the sword. He notes that since Huyang doubted Wudong's capacity, he wanted to show him how deep their roots actually run. He steps close, his hand glowing with a soft purple light. He boasts that there is absolutely no genius or monster that the Wudong sect cannot contain. Huyang just facepalms, letting out a massive, exhausted groan. He complains internally about how martial artists always manage to turn every single conversation back to fighting, wondering how a future business tycoon is supposed to survive surrounded by these combat-obsessed monks. He clears his throat, politely apologizing for his previous arrogant speech. But he still screams that he is absolutely not staying on this mountain. Manhwa's expression goes cold, asking him for a real reason. Our guy just stands there, hands on his hips, yelling that he just does not want to, and there is nothing the master can do about it. Qianghua raises a hand to his chin, thinking it over. He sighs, telling Hui Young he has absolutely no idea how blessed he actually is. He notes that letting someone with his potential throw their life away would be like watching a kid jump straight into a well and doing nothing. Our guy looks confused, wondering what kind of metaphor he is spinning now. It means he is officially placing Hui Young under house arrest, and he is not allowed to leave the mountain without his direct permission. He points out that since his family paid a massive donation to get him in, his parents will probably be thrilled to hear he is getting personal lessons from a high master. Hui Young completely loses his mind, screaming at him to explain why he is so obsessed with keeping him here. He claims again that he is just a regular kid from a humble farming background. He demands to know why a massive wealthy sect like Wudong is trying so hard to kidnap a random secular disciple. He glares at him, desperately waiting for a logical answer. Qianghua just smiles, points a finger at him, and tells him his reason is simple, just because. The next morning, Hui Young is holding his new wooden token, looking like he just watched his entire retirement plan get deleted. He is now a temporary main sect disciple. Qianghua explains that keeping an eye on him is way too difficult while he is just a secular disciple, so he moved him up the ladder. He admits he wanted to make him a permanent member immediately, but the sect leader was too smart and refused to sign off on it. But he cheers him on, saying that if he works hard, he can become a permanent, official member in no time. Our guy covers his face, letting out the most depressed sigh in history. He realizes that if he wants to buy the high-level skills he needs to escape, he has to find a way to make some serious cash. He ponders if he should just reveal his secret shop system, but decides that might get him locked in a research basement. He calculates that even a little bit of seed money would allow him to buy the talents he needs to slip away. He stops walking and calls out to the master. He looks him dead in the eye and asks him if he happens to have any cash on him. Changhua's face completely drops, looking at him with absolute disgust. Our guy scratches his cheek, asking him to stop looking at him like he is a beggar, and explains he just wants to exchange his 75 Yang voucher for cold, hard coins. Changhua notes that money is completely useless on Wudong Mountain, but Hui Young just shrugs and says he likes the look of it. The master sighs, taking the voucher and agreeing to get it exchanged. They enter the Gokjian Pavilion, the main financial hub of the mountain, where Hui Young is supposed to serve his punishment. Qianghua pulls out a massive, heavy string of copper coins, but instead of handing it over, he holds it up and says he will keep it safe until his pavilion service is finished. Hui Young's eyes pop out of his head, screaming that he is literally stealing his property. Our guy is panicking, dropping some high-level financial terms about how currency has a much higher present value than future value. Qianghua looks at him blankly, asking if he is trying to charge him interest, but Hui Young just screams to get his money back. The master tucks the string of coins deep into his sleeve. He leans in close, his smile turning incredibly mischievous as he notes that if he gives him the money now, Hui Young will just use it to run away again. He walks away, leaving our guy completely broke and utterly defeated. Suddenly, a tired voice from the back of the room asks what all the noise is about. A master walks in, rubbing his head and complaining that they are ruining his nap. It is senior brother Qiangsu, looking like a man who has not slept since the previous dynasty. Qianghua greets him warmly, but Qiangsu snapped back that this is a pavilion for demoted outcasts, so he should drop the fancy titles. He looks at Hui Young, noting that he does not look like he has a single good martial bone in his body. Qianghua just bows and tells him he is leaving the kid in his very capable hands. The master walks out, leaving Hui Young alone with the exhausted warden. Our guy stands there wondering what kind of terrible chore they have lined up for him. He suspects the two masters plotted this entire setup together, but with zero cash and no exit, he has no choice but to play along. Qiangsu tells him to follow. He explains the schedule. Service hours are from the hour of the rabbit to the hour of the rooster. That is 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. A solid 14-hour shift, and says his main duty is to deliver a set of bamboo tubes to the Samchiang Pavilion. Hui Young's face falls as he looks up at the pavilion, which is literally built on the sheer vertical peak of the highest cliff on the mountain. He screams that he does not even know basic light footwork, so a delivery up there is basically a death sentence. He stares at the path, his eyes wide with horror. And then Qiangsu opens the storage room, revealing a sack of bamboo tubes that is literally 3 times the size of Hui Young's entire body. Our guy immediately throws a massive tantrum on the floor. kicking his legs and screaming that he will definitely fall to his death. Chiang-su just looks down at him, his expression cold as he notes that if he refuses, he will have to expel him for negligence. Hui-young's eyes light up, thinking his dream of expulsion is finally coming true, but Chiang-su adds one small detail. Since he is technically a main sect disciple now, the traditional rules of expulsion apply. In the Wudang sect, if an official disciple is expelled for a serious crime or negligence, they do not just let them walk away with their secrets. They physically destroy their dantian, the internal energy center, leaving them as a complete bedridden cripple for the rest of their natural life. Our guy lies on the floor, his hand trembling as he clutches his stomach, realizing Chiang-hwa upgraded his status specifically so this brutal rule would trap him here. He slowly sits up, realized he has been completely outplayed by the troll master. He packs the massive sack onto his back, muttering curses under his breath. He reaches the base of the mountain and grips the first stone handhold. He begins his brutal, vertical climb up the sheer cliff face, screaming into the wind that he is going to make the entire Wudang sect pay for this. Morning sun rising over the Wudang mountains, the perfect peaceful start to a day. Except a hand is currently reaching up from the cliff edge, clinging for dear life. Our guy Hui-young pulls his body up onto the flat stone, sounding like his lungs are about to collapse. He drops flat on his back, fully convinced he is about to see the game over screen. He looks out at the sunrise, trying to find some positive coping mechanism by telling himself the view is great. And then Chiang-su walks up behind him and immediately drops another massive load of dispatches onto his chest. He casually notes that Hui-young is running behind schedule and says he cannot go home until every single delivery is finished. Hui-young just lies there, putting on the most painfully fake, dead-inside smile you have ever seen. His inner merchant brain is currently screaming every curse word in his vocabulary at the entire Wudang sect. The next morning, Chiang-su steps out of the pavilion gates, only to find Chang-hwa waiting for him with a very cheerful look on his face. He asks his senior brother how Hui-young handled his first day on the job. Chang-su glares at him, asking if he is seriously playing dumb after recommending the most dangerous cliff on the mountain. Chiang-hwa just laughs it off, and Chiang-su tells him he has a deeply twisted sense of humor. The Sam-Chiang Pavilion Cliff is not just a delivery route. It is actually the training ground for Wudang's legendary light footwork, the Blue Cloud Steps. If a normal disciple tries to climb it without understanding the flow of energy, they will lose their balance instantly. Their foot slips on the stone, and they go flying down the mountain, showing exactly why this place is considered a nightmare for beginners. Chiang-hwa notes that while he recommended the path, Chiang-su was the one who made the kid climb it in pitch-black darkness. Chiang-su argues that climbing that wall at night without proper moonlight should have been physically impossible. But then he pauses, his expression going completely serious, noting that traditional logic does not apply to this kid. He tells Chiang-hwa he will handle the remaining deliveries himself, but Chiang-hwa asks how many could possibly be left. The master peeks inside the room, and his eyes go wide as he realizes the storage area is completely empty. Chiang-su closes his eyes, looking incredibly smug about the reveal. He tells him there is nothing to be surprised about. The two masters look down at Hui-young, who is curled up on the rug, fast asleep under a heavy blanket. Chiang-su reveals that the kid delivered every single dispatch on the list in a single night, which means he had to scale that vertical cliff at least 3 times back-to-back in the dark. He notes that he has never seen anyone master the principles of the Blue Cloud Steps on their very first attempt. He recalls how Hui-young had to physically hold the bamboo delivery tubes with his teeth when both hands were busy scaling the rocks. He calls the kid a literal heaven beyond heaven, completely amazed by the natural talent. He sighs, lamenting that if the kid had joined Wudang 10 years earlier, he would have been the pillar of the entire Murim world. Chang-hwa looks down at the sleeping, drooling teenager and gets a very evil, happy smile on his face, suggesting they should push him even harder now. Our guy slowly blinks his eyes open, looking like a zombie that just crawled out of a swamp. He lets out a massive yawn, remembering the pure terror of his climbs. He notices the fur blanket on his shoulders, realizing his cheap, keen movement skill from the system is the only reason he is still alive. And then, Chiang-su stands directly over him, asking if he is seriously tired after doing such a basic task. He yells at him to get his lazy butt off the floor immediately. Hui-young politely hands back the blanket, thanking him, but the master gets disgusted and asks if he is trying to return a blanket covered in drool. He tells him to throw it away or sell it, and Hui-young happily decides to keep the expensive blanket for himself. He packs up his gear while the master watches him silently from behind. Chiang-su tells him to grab the next batch of dispatches and follow him. He notes that there is a very specific place they need to go together. They walk down the stone path, their boots hitting the dirt. Hui-young is following quietly, wondering what kind of scheme they have cooked up for today. He realizes they are heading back toward the same cliff, wondering if he is just going to be a mailman forever. Suddenly, Chiang-su tosses a piece of cloth backward, catching Hui-young right in the face. He holds up the blue fabric, asking why on earth the master is handing him a headband. Chiang-su tells him to cover his eyes, and tells him he is going to climb the vertical rock wall again. Blindfolded. Hui-young immediately slams the cloth onto the dirt in absolute rage. He screams at him, asking if climbing a cliff in the dark means he can suddenly navigate with zero eyesight. He yells that there is a massive difference between night and total blindness, refusing to follow such a ridiculous order. Chiang-su calmly asks if he would prefer to have his energy center destroyed instead, and Hui-young immediately ties the blindfold on with zero hesitation. He stands in front of the giant rock face, completely blind, wondering how his life got to this point. He touches the cold stone, convinced the Wudong masters are just trying to find a legally compliant way to murder him. He slowly starts to climb, his feet searching for any small ledge. He knows his system skill gives him a slight reaction boost, but a single slip up here means he is going to turn into a pancake. He reaches up, his hand glowing with a sudden blue light. He pauses, his fingers gripping the stone. He tilts his head under the blindfold, feeling a strange sensation in his eyes. Underneath the thick fabric, his vision suddenly clears, and a massive glowing blue map of energy nodes appears directly on the rock face, showing him the exact path to climb. It is a completely insane feeling. His eyes are covered, but the path is brighter than ever. The blue lines connect the glowing nodes up the entire face of the cliff. He realizes his pay-to-win system is giving him a literal cheat sheet for the mountain. He pulls himself up, moving with absolute precision. He reaches for the next ledge without a single moment of hesitation. His hand glows as it lands perfectly on the glowing blue node. He is sweating, but his movements are completely fluid now. He realizes the cliff itself is guiding him, forcing his body into a perfect natural rhythm. Every step he takes aligns perfectly with the flow of energy. A single, flawless path is leading him upward, showing him the true mechanics of Wudong's movement. He reaches the summit, pulls off the blindfold, and takes a massive breath of fresh air. He looks out at the sky, feeling a strange warmth spreading through his entire body. He touches his stomach, realizing his energy center is burning hot. He notes that this high-level art is on a completely different level from the cheap techniques he tried to learn in his past life. Suddenly, Chiang-su whacks him over the head with a thick manual, asking who gave him permission to remove the blindfold. Our guy rubs his head, complaining about the physical abuse. He looks down at the book, which has the title Blue Cloud Steps written on the cover. The master notes that he has officially reached the first stage of the technique. He explains that Hui-young has only mastered it physically, so he needs to read the manual to understand the actual theory behind it. Hui-young looks at the book, feeling a wave of genuine excitement. He recalls how he failed to learn even basic martial arts in his past life due to his terrible talent. But now, he is holding an elite manual of a major sect, his body radiating a blue aura. He starts chuckling to himself like a cartoon villain, and Chiang-su just sweat drops at the strange kid. The master notes that this footwork is just a tiny fraction of Wudong's true power. He explains that once he becomes an official member, he will have access to much deeper secrets. He leans in, mockingly asking if he still wants to run away from Wudong now. Hyung immediately tries to negotiate, asking if main sect disciples are allowed to work as merchants in the secular world. Chiang-su notes that the financial department handles some outside affairs. Our guy's eyes turn into literal stars as he asks if he can run a massive merchant group under Wudong's name. The master looks at him blankly, explaining that with the leader's permission, he can at least work as a guardian in the outside world. Hui-young looks a bit disappointed, handing over the delivery bag to a very grateful monk. He waves goodbye, announcing that since his shift is done, he is heading home to sleep. But Chiang-su stops him, asking where he is going when there is still work to do. He reveals that his schedule was changed yesterday, and starting today, he is in charge of every single dispatch in the department. Hui-young's face twists in pure rage. He screams internally about the absolute audacity of these martial artists. He grinds his teeth, furious that they just ruined his nice moment of martial accomplishment. He yells at the master, demanding to know how they can change his contract without his consent. He screams that even literal bandits have more respect for agreements than this sect, and calls them a crazy bunch of ponytail-wearing monks. The master's eyes go cold, and in the next millisecond, he buries a fist straight into Hui Young's stomach. Our guy's soul nearly leaves his body as he lets out a painful gasp. He collapses onto the dirt, and Chiang-su notes that he seems to have a death wish. He looks down at him, warning him about the consequences of disrespecting a superior generation. He asks if he thought this was the outside world where lay disciples can just run their mouths without consequence. He tells him to get back to work or suffer the consequences, his voice echoing over the mountain. A massive downpour begins to fall over the entire Wudang mountain complex. Hui Young runs through the heavy rain, covering his head with his hands. He sprints into the courtyard, completely drenched. He wrings out his soaked black uniform shirt, sighing at his luck. He pulls off the shirt to dry it, and stands there shirtless, showing off a set of chiseled abs that look like they were carved by a classical sculptor. He mutters about the sudden weather. 2 months have passed since he first mastered the Blue Cloud Steps. His body has adapted to the insane workload, and he now has plenty of energy left even after delivering all the dispatches. And with his physical growth, his pay-to-win shop menu has upgraded as well. The store's inventory has expanded massively, listing so many high-level talents that he cannot even scroll through them all. He grins, thinking this feels exactly like playing an old-school RPG and raising a character. And then a massive fist hits him right on the head, sending him face first into the floor. He rubs his new bump, screaming at Chiang-su to explain why he is always sneaking up on him. The master points at the floor, showing 2 faint glowing blue footprints, warning him that he is still putting too much weight on his steps. Hui Young complains, but internally admits that Chiang-su's violence is actually high-level acupressure designed to clear his energy blockages. The master looks him over, admitting the kid has finally reached a respectable minimum standard. Suddenly, Changhua opens the door and announces that it is finally time to start his real training at the Pavilion of the Tao. Hui Young asks if his delivery shifts are finally over, but Changhua laughs and says he still has to work whenever he is not actively training. He smiles warmly, telling him he is going to introduce him to his other disciples today. He notes that once Hui Young becomes official, these people will be his seniors. Our guy nods, looking out at the massive training hall in the distance. He walks behind Changhua, his expression turning serious. He wonders if he is finally going to learn actual combat arts instead of just running mail. He recalls how frustrated he was when Changhua first dragged him to this department like a dog on a leash. He notes that while the footwork training was great, the Troll Master had not actually taught him a single combat move yet. Every time he asked about it, Changhua would just smile and say everything in its own time. Our guy admits it sounded like a massive excuse back then, but now he hopes his new seniors are at least friendly and easy to deal with, like his friend Jian Oshu. He steps into the courtyard, and his entire face instantly goes dark with sheer horror. Changhua stands there, looking incredibly proud of himself. Hui Young looks down at the ground, his eyes wide, and a group of 8-year-old child disciples runs up to him, thrusting their broken grass whistles into his face and screaming at him to fix them immediately. Our guy stands there, completely dead inside, realizing his official seniors are the exact same toddlers he was scamming for copper coins. So, here is the big transition. Our guy has survived the cliff climbing simulator, only to realize his official main sect seniors are literally a bunch of middle schoolers. Hui Young is having a massive crisis of faith, pointing out that he has already reached adulthood. He cannot wrap his head around the fact that these tiny toddlers are technically his superiors. Changhua just chuckles, explaining that in the martial arts world, age means absolutely nothing compared to seniority. Our guy tries to find any loophole to escape this nightmare, suggesting he is still just a provisional member. Changhua tells him to stop complaining, noting they will be seeing a lot of each other from now on. And then the beautiful Troll Master simply jumps 50 feet into the air and flies away, leaving Hui Young with the kids. He stands there, his hand frozen in the air, realizing he has been abandoned. A young kid steps up behind him, asking if he is the new junior brother. Meet Myung-sung, a kid who has the face of an angel and the attitude of a corporate middle manager. He tilts his head, demanding an answer with absolute authority. Our guy mutters a weak reply, realizing this kid is indeed the eldest senior among the children. The kid immediately starts lecturing him about his disrespectful tone, and Hui Young is already deeply exhausted. Young watches him, wondering what kind of strict boarding school environment produces a kid this uptight. Myung-sung accuses him of trying to disrupt the sacred peace of Mount Wudong, and claims the other kids are losing their focus because Young is running around selling grass flutes. Young looks at him, his merchant radar immediately scanning the kid's true motives. He asks him if he is referring to the legendary grass flutes as mere toys. He realizes the kid is not actually angry about the rules, he is just jealous because he did not get one. So, our guy decides to use a classic sales strategy to win over the boss. He takes out a fresh green leaf, puts it to his lips, and starts to blow. A surprisingly beautiful melody echoes across the quiet courtyard. Even the other kids stop their training, turning around to listen to the show. The music rises into the sky, sounding incredibly peaceful. The little seniors are completely mesmerized, their eyes sparkling like they are at a concert. Myung-sung's tough exterior instantly crumbles as he looks at the music maker. Young twirls the leaf, telling him it is important for a senior to set a good example, and offers the flute to him as a free gift of respect. The kid hesitantly reaches out, his tiny hand grabbing the leaf. He tries to act cool, coughing and claiming he is only taking it to be polite, while his friends whisper about how easily he folded. But their wholesome toy exchange is suddenly interrupted by a very deep, very aggressive voice. A group of older disciples steps into the courtyard, their shadows falling over the kids. Myung-sung's eyes narrow as he asks what they are doing in their training area. Meet Myung-han, a kid who is technically 12 but looks like a retired lumberjack who has seen 3 wars. Young is deeply confused by Wudong's naming convention, noting that all these similar names are impossible to track. The giant kid sneers at Myung-sung, asking if he is not embarrassed to be playing with leaves in front of the juniors. Young is staring at his massive jawline, seriously questioning if this guy is actually a child. The bully steps up to Young, towering over him like an absolute wall of muscle. He tells him that selling cheap toys on the mountain is a crime worthy of getting his hands broken. Myung-gyung instantly steps in front of Young, trying to defend his business partner. The bully yells at him, furious that they are treating a secular newcomer like a real brother. He smirks, realizing Young is the rumored kid who got pushed into their department. His friends start laughing in the back, mocking Young for trying to learn martial arts at his ancient age of 17. The bully steps forward, his heavy boots clattering on the stone. He points a finger at Young, asking if he is just stupid, and raises a wooden training sword, aiming it straight at Young's nose. Myung-sung suddenly steps between them, his wooden sword blocking the bully's hand with a sharp clatter. The giant bully glares down at him, his veins popping as he asks if he actually wants to fight. Young is standing in the back looking completely unbothered, enjoying the show. He looks at the kid squaring off, wondering how he ended up in the middle of an elementary school turf war. Myung-gyung whispers to him that these bullies are actually disciples under Master Chiang-soo. He explains that since Chiang-soo and Chiang-hwa are rivals, their students are constantly trying to beat each other up. The giant bully tells Myung-sung to get out of the way so he can teach the newcomer some manners. Myung-sung refuses, declaring that since Young is under his branch, any discipline has to go through him. Another kid leaps into the air behind them, declaring himself the true senior. Myung-sung draws his wooden blade, his eyes cold as he offers to settle this with swords. The giant bully grins, his grip tightening on his wooden weapon. He lunges forward, and their wooden swords clash with a heavy impact that sends splinters flying. Myung-gyung starts cheering in the back, listing off Myung-sung's historic win-loss record against the bully. He claims that statistically, their side is guaranteed to win this match. Young watches the fight, but as he tracks their movements, he realizes something is very different. Unlike his past life, where fights were just a blur of violence, he can see everything clearly now. He can see the blue energy nodes lighting up under their feet as they move across the courtyard. They are both using the basic blue cloud steps, which means he can predict their next 3 moves in advance. Myung-sung ducks under a wide swing and delivers a massive sweeping strike. The impact sends the giant bully flying backward across the stone floor. The bully crashes hard into the dirt, his wooden sword clattering away. Myung-sung stands over him, panting heavily, telling him to take his friends and get lost. He glares down at the defeated rival, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. One of the other bullies runs up, complaining that his words are way too harsh. Another kid steps forward, wearing a smug smile that says he is not done yet. He looks at Myung-sung and asks if he would like to try a second round against a fresh opponent. Myung-sung swings his sword, clearing his breath as he prepares for another round. He is clearly on the verge of collapsing from stamina drain, but his pride will not let him back down. He raises his blade, telling him to come at him anytime. Hui-young is sitting in the back, genuinely impressed by the sheer stubbornness of these kids. The fight begins, and the clatter of wood echoes across the courtyard as they trade heavy blows. But Myung-sung's energy is completely spent, his movements slowing down. His sword is swiped away, flying high into the air before embedding itself in the dirt. The opponent holds his wooden blade right at Myung-sung's throat, cheering about his victory. Myung-gyong immediately steps up next, drawing his own wooden sword to keep the gauntlet going. He asks the bully if he is planning on running away after beating a tired opponent. The bully grins, telling him to stop talking and show him what he has got. They clash instantly, their wooden swords meeting with a sharp clatter. Hui-young analyzes the format, realizing this is a classic team gauntlet-style duel. He calculates the match, knowing that while Myung-gyong is decent, their team is severely outnumbered. The other kids on their side are simply too young and lack the raw physical power to stand a chance. At this age group, a single year of physical growth is an absolute insurmountable advantage. One by one, the younger disciples under Chianghwa's line are swiped away, crashing into the stone floor. Hui-young watches them fall, realizing they are about to suffer a complete team wipe. The giant bully slowly stands back up, looking down at Hui-young with a very ugly smile. He notes that since all the protectors are down, he can finally discipline the secular newcomer himself. Hui-young looks at him, completely expressionless, but his inner thoughts are turning. He looks at the kids who are currently crying and holding their bruised arms, realizing they actually risked their lives to protect him. He admits he feels a little bit guilty about letting this slide. So, he slowly stands up and asks the giant bully if he wants to try a lesson with him instead. The bully looks at him like he just spoke in a foreign language. He smirks, telling Hui-young that if he kneels down and begs right now, he will let it go as a joke. Hui-young looks him in the eye and tells him his offer is absolute garbage. The bully's smile vanishes, his fist clenching so hard his knuckles turn white. Hui-young mocks his dramatic speech, asking how a kid his age is talking about drinking penalty toasts, pointing out his face looks old enough to buy alcohol anyway. The bully loses his mind, throwing a massive high-speed punch straight at Hui-young's face. He screams in rage as Hui-young easily slips past the giant fist. Our guy moves like water, his boots gliding across the stone tiles. He has a very confident grin on his face, knowing he did not jump into this fight without a plan. He watched every single one of their duels, and since his perception is boosted, he has already memorized the bully's movement patterns. His 30 years of merchant experience watching martial artists fight has given him a massive cognitive advantage. And since the bully's footwork is entirely based on the blue cloud steps, he can see every single attack coming a mile away, dodging his swings with millimeter precision. The bully is panting, completely unable to touch him. He looks around in absolute confusion, wondering how a secular kid is moving like a ghost. Hui-young prepares to land a counterpunch to the ribs, but as he steps in, his fist bounces off the bully's dense muscle, and a wave of pain travels up his arm. He looks at his bruised hand, realizing he made a massive mathematical error. While his footwork and perception are master level, his raw physical body is still incredibly weak. He simply does not have the physical strength to damage an inner disciple who has trained their internal energy for years. Compared to these kids who have trained their bodies daily, he is still just a regular civilian. He can dodge forever, but if the giant manages to land even a single clean hit, his fragile body is going to shatter. He watches the giant wind up for another massive swing, realizing he needs to change tactics. He glares at him, preparing to take a massive gamble. He lunges forward, looking like he is going to trade blows directly. The giant throws a heavy punch straight at his face. The fist grazes Hui-young's cheek, drawing a small line of blood. The bully looks confused, realizing the kid did not actually try to block. Hui-young uses the momentum of the near miss to spin through the air, and launches himself backward with a spectacular dramatic spin, looking like he just took a fatal hit. The kids on the side watch in absolute shock, their faces completely pale. Myung-sung and Myung-gyong gasp, convinced their new junior brother has been obliterated. Hui-young crashes into the stone floor with a massive impact, kicking up a cloud of dust. He lies there face down, steam rising from his body, looking completely defeated. But as the dust clears, the giant bully is staring at his own hand in complete panic, wondering if he actually hit the kid, unaware that our guy just pulled off the most legendary insurance scam in Muram history. So, we left off with our guy Hui Young pulling off the absolute mother of all insurance scams. He literally just dove face first onto the stone pavement, kicking up a dramatic cloud of dust, and now he is lying there completely motionless. Look at Myung-han's face. He is staring at his own hand in pure, unadulterated horror. He is questioning his entire life, his training, and physics itself. He is internally screaming because he knows for a fact his fist didn't even graze the kid, but suddenly, the boss fight music stops as a booming voice echoes across the courtyard. And of course, the adults have arrived. It is Chianghua, Wudong's resident troll genius, alongside Qiangyu, the extremely stern and heavily stressed master of the rival branch. Qiangyu is absolutely not having a good day. He demands to know what the hell is going on, his face looking like he just saw his retirement fund go up in smoke. Myung-han instantly starts sweating bullets, stuttering like a kid who just got caught trying to download free RAM on the family computer. Qiangyu places a hand on the boy's head, but do not let the physical touch fool you. This is not a loving gesture. It is the classic parent-teacher conference look where the parent is silently calculating how much this is going to cost them in reputation points. He claims he heard a massive commotion and rushed over to see what was happening, trying to play it cool. Meanwhile, Chianghua is playing his part in this drama perfectly. He is cradling Hui Young like a tragic hero in a low-budget theater play. To make things even more ridiculous, Hui Young literally shoots a fountain of blood out of his nose on cue. The dedication to the craft is honestly unmatched. He is acting like he is on his deathbed. Chang-yu tries to brush it off, coughing awkwardly and calling it a simple squabble among children. Changhua is not letting him off the hook that easily. He playfully taps Hui Young, yelling back, "Did you really just call this a minor squabble? Is it a squabble when a fully trained martial artist brutally assaults an innocent kid who hasn't even learned a single combat technique?" Hui Young is in the background wiping his nose, probably thinking he deserves an Oscar for this. And then, the atmosphere shifts. Xianghua's playful expression completely vanishes, replaced by a dark, terrifying glare that would make a demon run for cover. He demands a direct apology to Hui Young this instant. The raw pressure in the air is heavy enough to crush a normal person. Even when Qianghua is trolling, you cannot forget he is one of Wudong's absolute top-tier monsters. And here is our title card. Hui Young is casually scratching his nose, completely unfazed by the life-threatening aura. He is busy analyzing the spicy political drama between these two masters. He knows he technically learned the high-level Blue Cloud Steps light footwork on his own, but since Qianghua doesn't know that, he is happy to let his senior use this situation to absolutely bully the rival branch. Qiangyu grits his teeth so hard you can practically hear them cracking. He taps Myung-han on the shoulder and orders him to apologize. Myung-han has no choice. He bows his head, delivering a highly reluctant, soul-crushing apology to the kid he was trying to beat up 5 minutes ago. Qiang-yu turns around immediately, wanting to end this embarrassing disaster as fast as possible, but our guy Hui Young is a master merchant. He didn't take a dive onto solid concrete just to get a cheap sorry. He calls out to them to wait up. The entire rival squad stops in their tracks, looking back at this absolute menace who is casually waving his hand from the dirt. He points to his nose, asking, "Aren't you guys going to ask for the victim's opinion before you just walk away?" Qiangyu looks like he is about to pop a blood vessel, but Hui Young just flashes a bright, innocent smile next to an equally amused Qianghua, asking for a little bit of cash to cover his medical bills. Look at this smug face. He is literally making the universal gesture for "show me the money." He has zero shame, and honestly, you have to respect the hustle. Qiangyu is absolutely flabbergasted. Qianghua is in the background, shaking with silent laughter. Hui Young calmly explains that a modest sum of 2 silver taels should cover the damage. He even acts concerned, asking if they think that amount is a bit too excessive for a young kid's recovery. Let us break down the fantasy economics here so everyone is on the same page. 1 silver tael is worth a staggering 1,000 copper coins. For a normal lay disciple, that is an absolute fortune. And since this entire injury was achieved through a self-harm scam, asking for 2 silver is basically highway robbery. But Hui Young plays his trump card. He sighs loudly, wondering what the rest of the sect would think if they found out a high-ranking master of the Qiang generation was cheaping out on a hurt kid's medical expenses. He is basically giving them an ultimatum. Pay up, or become the laughingstock of Wudong. Xiangyu realized he has been checkmated. He reaches into his robes, his hand trembling with pure rage. He drops 2 shiny silver tails right into Huiyang's waiting palms. Look at Huiyang's face. Payment confirmed. Business is booming. Xiangyu demands to know his name, probably so he can add him to his mental blacklist. Huiyang proudly introduces himself as Mook Huiyang. The master spins on his heel, his feet stomping against the stone steps. He walks away with his bruised disciples, silently swearing to himself that he will remember this absolute gremlin of a child. As soon as they are gone, Huiyang is happily pocketing his hard-earned silver while Qianghua stands next to him, clearing his throat. Qianghua casually suggests that, as his caring senior, he should probably hold on to those heavy silver tails for safekeeping. Huiyang immediately clutches his pouch like a wild animal protecting its prey. He points an angry finger, telling Qianghua not to try any funny business because he earned this cash with his own sweat, blood, and spectacular concrete diving. Qianghua smiles, complimenting him on his truly superb acting skills. He notes that seeing someone do a full theatrical mid-air flip and crash onto the ground entirely on their own was a first-class comedy show. Huiyang freezes, realizing his cover was blown from the very start. Qianghua explains through a series of quick mental flashbacks that he was watching the entire fight from the very beginning. He saw every dodge, every movement, and only stepped in once Huiyang decided to pull his insurance stunt. Qianghua's face goes dead serious. He asks Huiyang if he isn't ashamed of himself. He has all this hidden talent and physical potential, yet he chose to play dirty and couldn't even land a single clean blow on a kid his own age. Huiyang casually sticks a finger in his ear, looking completely bored. He says he is not ashamed at all. He explains that since he has never formally learned martial arts, it is only natural that he cannot match someone who has dedicated half their life to training. He is just a humble merchant after all. Qianghua's hand clenches. He notes that even if he isn't his official master, he is still his senior, which means it is his sacred duty to teach this shameless junior some proper Wudong manners. Huiyang just stares at him with a completely blank expression. He says if it is respect only meant for martial artists, he has zero interest. But before he can even finish his sentence, Qianghua's eyes lock onto him. The ground literally explodes where Huiyang was standing. The shockwave splits the air and leaves a massive crater in the stone pavement. Qianghua stands there, smiling calmly, dusting off his hands. He explains that the Muram has its own set of rules, and just because you claim you aren't a martial artist, doesn't mean you get a pass. He wraps an arm around the young child disciples, telling them with a cheerful smile that he is going to personally inject some manners into Huiyang now, so everyone should try to stay relaxed. Cut to Huiyang face planted in the exact same spot, but this time with a massive steaming bump on his head. Qianghua's terrifying fist is resting in the foreground. Our guy is crying out for a timeout, but unfortunately for him, the tutorial stage is officially over, and the real grind begins now. And so, a brand new, incredibly painful routine is added to Huiyang's daily life on Wudong Mountain. It is daily training sessions with Qianghua. The regimen is deceptively simple. Huiyang has to carry massive, heavy stone weights while doing squats under Qianghua's watchful eye. And once the physical exercises are finished, Qianghua brutally beats him to a pulp in a whirlwind of fists. Qianghua claims this is acupressure stimulation to clear his meridians, but the intensity is on a completely different level compared to Master Qiangsu's sessions. Qianghua looks incredibly refreshed afterward. While the sore after effects of Qiangsu's rough treatment usually faded after a single hour, Qianghua's high-level beating leaves Huiyang's body in absolute agony for over half a day. Huiyang lies on the ground, literally smoking from exhaustion, realizing he has reached his absolute limit. He needs to use his pay-to-win talent shop right now. He forces himself up, cursing under his breath. He wanted to save his funds to buy a high-tier, game-breaking talent all at once, but his body is going to give out if he takes one more of Qianghua's fists. He summons the bamboo slip, the glowing system shop interface. Thanks to all his intense training and physical labor, several new talents have finally been unlocked. And best of all, he has the 2 silver tails he extorted from the rival master. It is time to spend his hard-earned cash. He scrolls through the menu. Heavenly Bone and Heavenly Eye are currently unavailable due to their insane prices, and basic sword and physical talents cost 10 silver. But then, his eyes lock onto a cheap option. He points his finger at tough physique in his 8, which costs exactly 2 silver taels. He crushes the physical coins in his hand, letting the silver dissolve into sparkling golden system dust. The system screen flashes with a giant purchase complete. A massive surge of blue mystical energy wraps around Hui Young, restructuring his muscles and bones at a cellular level. He flashes his signature smug grin, ready to show his senior what real pay-to-win defense looks like. Hashtag Chapter 12. We start the next chapter with Manhwa standing in the courtyard, looking peaceful and smiling like a saint who has never harmed a fly. He asks Hui Young if he can finally feel the beautiful rewards of all his hard work and dedication paying off. Hui Young is currently lifting massive metal dumbbells, his shirt completely gone, revealing an absolutely shredded 8-pack physique. The kid went from scrawny to looking like a Greek god in record time. But he looks back with dead, exhausted eyes, stating that he doesn't feel rewarded at all. Every single day is just pure, unadulterated agony. Manhwa sighs, acting disappointed that his junior cannot find joy in seeing himself grow stronger. He clenches his fist with a loud crack, suggesting they start their usual daily routine. He takes a low stance, warning Hui Young not to tense up his body, because if he does, the acupressure blows are only going to hurt twice as much. Manhwa lunges forward, delivering a massive, energy-infused punch straight to Hui Young's chest. The impact is so intense, it literally blows the heavy dumbbells out of Hui Young's hands, shaking the stone floor. But look at Hui Young's face. Instead of coughing blood and collapsing, his eyes go wide and a sharp, wild grin spreads across his face. His inner system screen flashes, showing the activated Tough Physique 8 skill. It forms a glowing blue spiritual armor over his chest. He can actually take the hit. He realizes the 2 silver taels were worth every single copper. He starts laughing like a cartoon villain, realizing that if a cheap grade 8 skill can boost his defense this much, it is way more effective than he ever anticipated. Manhwa is standing there looking slightly confused. Hui Young's inner merchant brain starts cooking. He realizes he doesn't even need to save up for expensive high-grade talents. He can just stack up dozens of cheap low-grade skills to build a broken min-max build. Manhwa's hand is actually tingling from the impact. Our guy is mentally celebrating, thinking he might actually become the strongest martial artist in the world using nothing but dirt cheap grade 8 and 9 talents. He is the ultimate budget gamer. Manhwa walks up to him, his eyes narrowing as he asks why Hui Young's body suddenly became so incredibly sturdy overnight. Hui Young is just standing there drooling, trying to look as dumb and innocent as possible to hide his system. Manhwa flashes a terrifying, dark-shaded smile, rolling up his sleeves. He notes that since Hui Young's body can handle it now, he can finally start hitting him a little bit harder. Hui Young's smug grin instantly vanishes as a massive, blue-glowing fist of doom approaches his face at Mach speed. The entire training field explodes in a massive pillar of dust and energy. Our narrator note for the day: there is always a very good reason why cheap things are cheap, especially when you are trying to cut corners in a martial arts world. The dust clears, and we see the adorable little junior Myeong peeking over the stone wall with wide, worried eyes. He calls out, asking if his junior brother is still alive. Hui Young is lying flat on the floor, once again smoking from the impact. Hui Young sits up, rubbing his sore neck and muttering that he is not okay at all. Myeong kindly suggests that if it hurts too much, he should try screaming loudly, because Manhwa sometimes goes easy on you if you cry. Hui Young notes that his senior has never once shown him that kind of mercy. The kid offers to go talk to Manhwa to ask him to take it easy, but Hui Young frantically waves his hands, telling him to absolutely not do that, because it will only make his daily beating 10 times worse. Myeong waves goodbye as Hui Young walks away, wishing him a safe trip back to the finance hall. Hui Young walks with a heavy, exhausted sigh, his body still aching from the training session. He looks back at the waving kid, thinking that while he appreciates the junior looking out for him, the constant sweet kid behavior is just making his life on this mountain more awkward. He looks up at Wudong's massive, imposing structures, declaring to himself that he needs to find a way to escape this sect as soon as humanly possible. He enters the Gokjeon Pavilion, finding the tired Master Chiang-su sorting through paperwork. Chiang-su doesn't even look up, lazily telling Hui Young there is no work for him today, so he should just scram. Hui Young actually begs him for work, claiming he will do absolutely any chore for the finance hall. Chiang-su looks at him suspiciously, asking since when he cared so much about chores, and tells him to go train at the Gungdo Hall instead. Hui Young's eyes lose all light. Going to train means running straight back into Chianghwa's fists of doom. He literally dives onto the floor, grabbing Chiangsu's legs and begging him to give him a task, screaming that he is going to physically die if he has to keep training with Chianghua. Chiangsu angrily kicks him off, calling him pathetic and telling him to get out. Suddenly, the heavy wooden doors creak open. "Excuse me." Chiangsu stops kicking, looking over his shoulder. Another disciple enters the room. Chiangsu is casually dragging a lifeless Huiyang across the floor by his ankle like a sack of potatoes. The disciple reports that a massive market is opening in Yichang, and the Shaanxi prefecture has requested an official Wudong escort. Chiangsu asks about the scale of the operation. The disciple explains that about 50 different major merchant guilds will be participating. Huiyang's ears instantly perk up from the floor. 50 guilds is an absolutely massive market event. Let us explain the context here. Shaanxi merchants are legendary in this era for being incredibly loaded. They basically control the Western trade routes, and because they carry massive amounts of wealth, they always hire top-tier sects like Wudong for protection, even if Wudong's security rates are ridiculously high. Chiangsu notes that 10 men should be enough to cover the escort, and asks how much they are offering. The disciple replies that they are offering 10 silver taels per person. Chiangsu chinstrokes, thinking 10 silver per person is a great, highly profitable deal. But Huiyang's merchant brain instantly goes into a frenzy. He is internally screaming, calling the Shaanxi merchants absolute cheap bastards. He grabs Chiangsu's leg again, but this time in pure, righteous merchant anger. He screams that hiring elite Wudang martial artists for only 10 silver per person is an absolute scam, calling them thieving bastards. The disciple ignores the screaming kid, holding up a silver ingot and a mock salt sack, suggesting they should buy their annual salt supply from them again this year. He notes the current rate is 30 sacks for 10 silver, but the Shaanxi merchants offered a special discount if Wudong buys over 500 sacks. Chiangsu smiles, thinking that sounds like a great deal, but Huiyang's eyes literally pop out of his head as he screams, "Are you guys out of your damn mins?" Chiangsu instantly grabs Huiyang by his collar, lifting him off the ground and asking if he is looking for a physical fight. Huiyang quickly apologizes for his outburst, but insists that the salt price they are offering is absolutely ridiculous in this day and age. Chiangsu glares at him, asking what a kid like him could possibly know about salt prices, noting he wasn't even born when these rates were established. Huiyang freezes, remembering his secret. "Oh, right, I regressed." But he taps the desk, arguing that based on the current market, the salt price should actually be 60 sacks for 10 silver taels, exactly double what the merchants are offering. Chiangsu and the disciple just stare at him like he is speaking a foreign language. Huiyang crosses his arms, realizing that if he is missing something, it has to be connected to the historical timeline. And then, it clicks. His eyes light up. The salt management system of this era hasn't undergone the historic government change yet. Let us dive into the economics so everyone can follow easily. Originally, in this era, you needed a highly exclusive government-issued salt license to legally sell salt. And these licenses were incredibly hard to get, only being issued at the dangerous northern frontier. Because supplying goods to the cold, hostile borderlands was a logistical nightmare, the central government used these lucrative salt licenses as a special financial incentive to encourage wealthy merchants to travel and trade there. Thanks to this policy, the northern borderlands became the absolute hub of salt distribution, and merchants would buy the salt from there to distribute and sell inland at high, heavily controlled prices. This ancient distribution policy is called the Gaejung system. But in Huiyang's memories of the future, this system eventually gets completely abolished and replaced by a brand new policy, and that historic policy is the famous Jiolseik system. Under the Jiolseik system, the government cuts out the middleman. All salt is gathered directly at local inland agencies instead of the northern borders, making distribution incredibly fast and cheap. The central government takes direct control of the management and sale of salt. In his past life, Huiyang never learned the exact political reason why the Gaejung system was suddenly abolished, but he suspects it was because the greedy salt merchants were evading massive amounts of taxes, and the government was just waiting for the perfect opportunity to strip them of their massive economic power. Regardless of the politics, the key takeaway is simple. Once the Jiolseik system starts, salt becomes incredibly easy and cheap to obtain nationwide, which causes the market price to absolutely crash, and that is how the price of salt plummeted to less than half of what Wudong is currently paying. Hu Young stands in the middle of the room, thinking hard. He realizes the Jolsek system is about to be implemented right around this exact year in the timeline. As Chiang-su and the disciple talk about placing their massive annual order, Hui Young realizes that if Wudong buys 500 sacks of salt at the current high price, the market will crash next month, and the sect will suffer a catastrophic, bank-breaking financial loss. He clenches his fist, realizing those crafty Shaanxi merchants definitely have inside information from their government connections. They are offering a discount now just to dump their soon-to-be worthless stock onto unsuspecting buyers like Wudong. Since Wudong earns a massive chunk of its operating expenses by buying and reselling salt, this bad trade could turn into a total disaster for the finance pavilion. Hui Young steps forward, placing his hand on Chiang-su's arm and declaring with absolute authority that they must not buy the salt yet. He cannot stand by and watch his cozy mountain home get scanned by some flatland merchants. Chang-su looks highly annoyed, asking what a kid knows about trade, and reminds him how incredibly rare it is for the greedy Shaanxi merchants to ever offer a discount. Hui Young looks him straight in the eye, asking a classic merchant question. If a group of people who are notorious for never giving discounts suddenly lower their prices out of nowhere, don't you think there is a hidden, highly suspicious reason for it? Chiang-su sighs, claiming Hui Young is just being paranoid, and drops some traditional wisdom about how all merchants are naturally crafty and only pursue their own short-term profit. Hui Young points his finger up, stating that is exactly his point. When crafty merchants drop their prices, there is always a hidden, self-serving motive behind it. Chiang-su crosses his arms, his expression turning serious as he asks Hui Young if he can take absolute responsibility for his words. Hui Young grins confidently, saying of course he can. He is already mentally celebrating, imagining how once the Geolpsych system starts and saves Wudong from bankruptcy, everyone will see him in a whole new light. He wonders if they will start calling him the Shining Hui Young. He starts walking toward the door, chuckling to himself that since Hui Young literally means bright light, maybe they will call him Light Light Light. But Chiang-su's voice stops him cold. A terrifying shadow falls over the master as he says, "In that case, let us go prove your grand claims right now," in front of the sect leader. Hui Young's face instantly freezes. His eyes go wide as he stutters, "What? In front of who?" Cut to the massive, majestic grand hall of Wudang. The heavy incense smoke drifts through the air. Hui Young is standing in front of a giant, ornate wooden table, looking incredibly small. Sitting at the head of the table is a legendary figure. One of the world's 5 great swordsmen, the Taiji Sword Emperor, and the absolute leader of the Wudong sect, Chang Ui. The raw, quiet power radiating from this elderly man is enough to choke a normal person, and now Hui Young has to convince him of an impending economic crash using only his words. The stakes just went through the absolute roof. All right, we are picking up right where we left off, and our guy Hui Young is currently standing in the grand meeting room. And the air in this place is so thick with raw spiritual pressure, you could literally cut it with a butter knife. Chiang-su, Wudong's finance master, is standing off to the side, sweating buckets, wishing he was anywhere else on earth. The sect leader is staring Hui Young down with those ancient, all-seeing eyes, silently analyzing the kid. He is looking for some kind of majestic, hidden martial master aura, but all he sees is a teenage lay disciple who looks like he wants to sell him a sketchy extended warranty. He breaks the silence, asking why Wudong shouldn't buy the salt at the Yichang market. Chiang-su instantly panics, trying to stammer out that this wasn't actually his opinion. Typical middle management behavior. The sect leader's face goes dark. He asks if they seriously brought this massive, trade-disrupting proposal to his desk without any solid proof to back it up. Our guy Hui Young realizes that if he lets Chiang-su keep rambling, they are both getting their cultivation center destroyed. So he takes a step forward, raises his hand, and calmly tells the boss that he is the one behind the proposal. The sect leader raises an eyebrow. He notes that a lay disciple has no business dictating the intersex trade deals. Hui Young just shrugs, saying he didn't exactly choose to be dragged into this meeting room in the first place. Chiang-su looks like his soul is about to leave his body, completely terrified by the kid's absolute lack of survival instinct. But the sect leader is intrigued. He looks at Hui Young directly and demands to know the truth. He points out that the Shaanxi merchants offering a discount is a once-in-a-decade opportunity, and other major sects are already lining up to buy. So why is a random kid trying to stop Wudong from taking the deal? Hui Young smiles, crossed arms and all, and tells the old man that they actually have plenty of time. In fact, he guarantees that the major merchant players, including the massive Huizhou coalition, won't even touch this salt deal. The sect leader's eyes narrow, demanding immediate proof. Huiyang looks him dead in the eye and tells him the son of a literal Huizhou merchant king is currently swept up in Wudong's lay disciple ranks. He specifically names the Yao family, one of the 15 ultra-wealthy elite clans of Huizhou, and tells the sect leader to go summon him. Jiangsu doesn't wait for a second order. He literally bolts out of the room like a character whose stamina bar is fully upgraded. A few moments of tense silence pass. And then, the sliding doors open to reveal Yao Hongyang, looking incredibly nervous and bowing deeply. The sect leader sits back, asking the boy about the situation at the Yichang market. Hongyang is completely caught off guard. He stammers, but confirms that yes, the Huizhou merchants are indeed skipping the market this time. The sect leader is stunned. It is a massive market with 50 rows of stalls. Why on earth would they pass on it? Here is the key detail. Hongyang explains that as far as his father's associates are concerned, none of the 15 main clans of Huizhou are dipping their toes into the salt trade this month. This is massive because if the biggest merchant faction in the land is avoiding a discounted deal, it means the discount is a giant glowing red flag. The sect leader closes his eyes, letting the heavy reality of the situation sink in. He dismisses Hongyang, who quickly slides the door shut, leaving Huiyang standing there looking incredibly smug. Huiyang is internally sighing, thinking about his senior master Qianhua's old metaphor. He remembers Qianhua telling him about how a true master cannot ignore a child walking straight toward a dangerous well. Our guy is basically playing the role of the savior here, even if Wudong's finance pavilion has been a massive pain in his neck. Watching this legendary martial arts sect march straight into a multi-thousand silver bankruptcy was just too painful for his professional merchant pride to watch. The sect leader opens his eyes, staring intensely at Huiyang, asking how a simple lay disciple could possibly know all of this. Huiyang just flashes his best merchant grin, stating that a true professional never reveals his trade secrets. He advises the sect leader to cancel the advance purchase and wait for the price to drop. The sect leader sits in silence for a long moment before sliding his chair back and agreeing to cancel the advance purchase. Jiangsu sighs in relief, but then the old man drops a massive bombshell. He tells Jiangsu to take Huiyang to the market and buy the salt anyway. Huiyang's jaw drops. He yells that the old man clearly didn't understand. Buying the salt now is still a terrible idea because the price is about to crash, but the sect leader ignores the protest, putting a firm hand on Jiangsu's shoulder. He looks directly at our guy Huiyang, his eyes gleaming with a highly calculated look. A massive, suffocating spiritual pressure fills the room once again, pinning Huiyang to the floor. He commands Huiyang to personally go to the market and bring back Wudong's salt supply. But here is the catch. Since Huiyang claims to be such a genius merchant, he has to negotiate a price that is significantly cheaper than the current market rate. If he fails, the sect leader promises to personally oversee a very painful punishment. Huiyang is absolutely outraged, screaming that this is completely unfair. He points out that the Shaanxi merchants are known as some of the most ruthless, tight-fisted negotiators in the Murim. How is he supposed to squeeze a discount out of them without any leverage? The sect leader's tone softens as he explains the harsh reality of Wudong's position. The sect does not engage in the salt trade just to line its own pockets. Their sacred duty as the leading righteous sect is to ensure a stable, affordable supply of salt to the entire Hubei province to prevent famine and economic collapse. Because of this, they must purchase the salt regardless of market conditions. But because of Huiyang's unproven claims, Wudong has thrown away their guaranteed discount. So the old man notes it is only fair that Huiyang takes responsibility and negotiates a better deal. He even challenges Huiyang's pride, asking if he actually lacks the basic negotiation skills to pull it off. Huiyang's forehead literally pops a vein from the insult. He beats his chest, complaining that he gave them a multi-thousand silver piece of advice for free, and now they want him to do the dirty work too. He yells that he is a top-tier, premium-grade merchant, and he does not work for free. The sect leader strokes his beard, a small, knowing smile playing on his lips as he agrees that a proper reward is indeed in order. He offers Huiyang a 1% commission on whatever savings he manages to negotiate. Huiyang's mental gears instantly start spinning. We can literally see the abacus beads flying in his mind. He immediately counters, demanding 10%. The sect leader calmly raises it to 3%. Huiyang yells 8% while Jiangsu facepalms in the background, absolutely astounded that this kid is haggling with the legendary sect leader of Wudong. The old man counters with a final offer of 5%. Hui Young immediately lunges forward, hand outstretched, declaring, "Fine, 5% it is." He quickly confirms the math. The standard market rate is 10 silver for 30 Dan, but the discounted rate is 9 silver. If he can buy it cheaper than 9, 5% of those massive savings go straight into his pocket. He is already grinning like a maniac, realizing the chump change he is about to secure is going straight into his pay-to-win system shop. He runs out of the room, yelling at the old man that he has to keep his sacred word. The sliding door snaps shut with a loud crash. Jiangsu turns to the sect leader, asking if he is seriously sure about letting this crazy kid handle Wudong's entire annual salt budget. He also asks how the sect leader knew the kid was so utterly obsessed with money. The old grandmaster just chuckles, taking a slow, peaceful breath. He notes that a man who proudly calls himself a merchant would never turn down a golden opportunity to make a profit. Meanwhile, our guy is already sprinting across the courtyard, his next financial scheme already fully drafted in his mind. Chapter 14. We open Chapter 14 in the lay disciple courtyard, where several disciples are casually hanging out, and of course we see Jian Osu, Hui Young's wealthy bank heir friend, sitting on the railing and happily playing his grass flute. Hui Young comes sprinting down the stairs like a character whose stamina bar is flashing red, yelling for Osu. Osu is confused, asking why Hui Young isn't at the main headquarters. Hui Young bent over, catching his breath, and desperately asks if anyone here has a direct connection to the Shaanxi merchants. The other disciples think about it, noting that the Shaanxi merchants usually send their kids to nearby sects like Manhwa, so nobody here has any connections. Hui Young sighs, putting his hands on his hips. He knew it was a long shot, but he had to ask. He explains that the Shaanxi merchants are coming to the Yichang market to sell their salt. Oshu just shrugs, noting that it is completely normal for merchants to travel and sell salt. Hui Young clenches his fist, his face turning dark. He tells them that this entire trade deal is a massive, pre-planned scam. The disciples look up in shock, their casual expressions completely vanishing. They are outraged, asking if those flatland merchants are seriously coming to exploit Wudong's territory using salt, which is a literal necessity of life. The hot-headed lay disciples immediately stand up on the railings, flexing their fists and yelling that they should go crush those thieving bastards first. Hui Young just watches them with a calm, closed-eye smile, thinking to himself that this is exactly why terms like Shaanxi merchants and Huizhou merchants exist. Let us explain the philosophy of the merchant world. Hui Young notes that in the business world, it is incredibly common for merchants to deceive one another. Their fundamental rule of thumb is that the one who gets fooled is the idiot, not the person who did the fooling. We see a visual of a rigged scale showing water being poured into a fish sack to increase its weight. This is the cutthroat reality of trade, pure, unadulterated survival of the craftiest. But when the person being deceived is a merchant's own home territory, the entire dynamic changes. Even though merchants appear to only chase cold, hard cash on the surface, they still carry a natural, protective love for their homeland deep in their hearts. And the moment an outside coalition tries to come in with the sole intent of exploiting and draining their home province, the local merchants are always the first to rise up in defense. Hui Young casually notes to himself that the reason is probably 90% financial since local damage hurts their future profits, but there is no need to ruin their heroic mood by mentioning that. Osu turns back to him, asking how exactly the Shaanxi merchants plan to pull off this massive deception. He notes that people aren't stupid, so price manipulation shouldn't be that easy to get away with. Before Hui Young can answer, a boot clacks against the stone steps. Mook Hui Young, right? They look over to see Yeo Hongyang, the secret Huizhou heir, walking down the stairs while scratching his cheek. He politely asks if he could speak with Hui Young in private for a moment. And here is our title card. We see the two of them walking off to a quiet corner of Wudong's massive temple grounds. Hongyang stops, his face covered in shadow as he looks back and asks the million-dollar question, "How did you know?" Hui Young plays dumb, tilting his head and asking what on earth he is talking about. Hongyang gets straight to the point. How did you know that the Kaizhong salt law is about to be completely abolished? The atmosphere goes cold. Hongyang is staring at him with an incredibly sharp, serious expression. Hui Young silently swallows, his eyes narrowing as he realizes the kid is a lot sharper than he looks. Hongyang is currently running a massive mental fanfiction about Hui Young. He suspects that Hui Young's lazy, weak disciple persona was just a brilliant act to hide his true identity as some elite merchant's son. He thinks Hui Young was following a genius strategy by staying low, because bragging about his wealth would have only attracted greedy parasites. He notes that this classified information about the salt reform is a secret that even high-ranking government officials in Beijing don't fully know about yet. He concludes that Huiyang must have a massive, incredibly powerful political backer behind him and asks if Huiyang can introduce them. Huiyang just puts on his best poker face, stating that he has no such backer. But he adds a cool merchant quote, stating that a merchant's true weapon is neither his sword nor his tongue, but his secrets. Hong Yang pauses for a second and then bursts out laughing, his serious face completely melting away. He wipes a tear, smiling as he notes that he has heard those exact same words from his own father, the Merchant King, until his ears literally grew tired of them. Huiyang just shrugs, thinking to himself that he actually learned quite a few things from the Huizhou Merchant King back in his past life, long before his time regression. He quickly shifts the subject, asking if Hong Yang, as a member of the Huizhou coalition, is going to help him out with the salt deal. Hong Yang immediately declines, telling him to count him out. Huiyang asks why, and Hong Yang explains that this deal is something that has already been agreed upon by the elders of both merchant coalitions. The Huizhou merchants have formally agreed to turn a blind eye to the massive profits the Shaanxi merchants are about to reap from the salt trade this time. Huiyang sighs, putting his hand on his hip and acting like he understands. Hong Yang is impressed, noting that Huiyang grasps the complex political situation remarkably easily. Huiyang explains that in business, you have to take as much as you give. It is obvious that the Shaanxi merchants gave Huizhou something massive in return for their silence. He narrows his eyes, a sharp, knowing look gleaming in his pupils. Like, perhaps, completely overlooking the illegal smuggling trade of the Huizhou merchants? Hong Yang's face instantly pales, his hand grabbing his forehead in absolute shock as he groans, asking how on earth this kid knows so many classified state secrets. Hong Yang grabs Huiyang by his shoulders, his face inches from his, desperately offering 10,000 silver taels if Huiyang introduces him to his mysterious backer. Huiyang is literally drooling, his hand twitching at the thought of 10,000 silver. He is seriously considering whether he should just confess his time regression to get the cash, but he forces himself to play it cool. Hong Yang is deeply moved by his strong character, assuming Huiyang is too righteous to be swayed by a mountain of silver. Huiyang just sweat drops, quickly asking if Huizhou is going to remain complete spectators in this fight. Hong Yang nods, explaining that in trade, when one party profits, another must incur a loss. That is just how the market works. But he asks why Huiyang is so desperate to obstruct the Shaanxi merchants. Huiyang explains his bizarre predicament with the sect leader who threatened to punish him if he doesn't buy the salt at a cheaper rate. Hong Yang burst out laughing once again, finding the entire situation absolutely hilarious. He can't believe Huiyang got Wudong's grandmaster on his nerves while trying to explain a simple government policy resulting in this crazy commission-based mission. He asks what Huiyang's plan is. He promises to keep the secret, betting his family's high credibility on it. Huiyang smiles, leaning in and raising his hand to whisper the grand scheme directly into Hong Yang's ear. But before he can utter a single word, a cold, heavy shadow falls over the both of them. Sagong Hyun! They spin around to see the massive, bald bully lay disciple standing on the stairs, a smug, highly malicious grin plastered across his face. He steps forward, noting that since they are sharing such juicy secrets, he should probably listen to the conversation too. Huiyang's eyes narrow as the chapter ends. Just when our guy was about to launch his master plan, his old nemesis has shown up to ruin the party. You'll have to wait until the next batch to see how Huiyang handles this bald distraction. So, we are picking up right in the middle of a high-stakes standoff. The bald bully Saigong Hyun has just cornered our guys in the Wudong courtyard, demanding to know what they are plotting. Huiyang just rolls his eyes, telling him to get lost because this has absolutely nothing to do with him. But Sagong Hyun crosses his massive arms, flashing a smug grin and claiming his Sungro Gate is handling the festival escorts, so it is definitely his business. He gets right in Huiyang's face, threatening to spread nasty rumors about them plotting a suspicious conspiracy to the Wudong Council if they don't start singing. Huiyang is internally sweating. It is a childish threat, but if rumors start circulating, it will drag him straight into the spotlight, which is the last thing a regressed merchant trying to min-max his life wants. But before he can formulate a plan, Yeo Hong Yang, Wudong's resident quiet kid, casually steps forward. The entire atmosphere instantly drops below freezing as Hong Yang's gentle vibe completely vanishes. He looks Sagong Hyun dead in the eye, his voice dripping with venom as he states that this trade business involves the Merchant King. He takes another step, his shadow completely looming over the massive bully. He asks if the cheap Sungro Gate seriously thinks they have the authority to look down on him and the legendary Yeo clan, demanding to know if Sagong-hyun is prepared to take responsibility for the consequences. Look at Sagong-hyun's face. He is sweating bullets, completely frozen in place. He realizes he just accidentally tried to extort the heir of the wealthiest merchant family in the land. He tries to grumble some empty threat to save face, but his voice is literally shaking. He spins on his heel and fast walks away with his tail between his legs. An absolute top-tier L for the bald faction. The second he is gone, Hong Yang's scary aura instantly evaporates. He rubs his neck, smiling and laughing like a sweet, innocent anime character. He cheerfully notes that he put enough pressure on the bully that they shouldn't be bothered for a while. Hui Young's face is just dead. He is internally screaming at how fast this kid's personality just flipped on a dime. Truly a terrifying merchant in the making. Osu runs up to them, asking Hui Young what the actual plan is. The three of them lean in, forming a classic secret whisper circle in the middle of the courtyard. Hong Yang listens to Hui Young's scheme, smiling as he notes that it is definitely a wild gamble, but highly worth a shot. Osu is practically vibrating with excitement, grinning and saying this sounds like an absolute blast. Hui Young just flashes a dark, highly menacing grin, declaring that it is going to be extremely fun for them and a complete nightmare for their targets. Cut to the bustling streets of Yichang. The annual trade market is in full swing, packed with lanterns, stalls, and thousands of travelers. Hui Young is walking through the crowd looking incredibly relaxed, while Treasury Master Chiang Su is trailing behind him, covering his ears and complaining about the absolute noise. Chiang Su is grimacing, yelling to ask where on earth the salt market is located. Hui Young casually replies that in a massive trade festival, the high-demand necessities like salt are always located right in the prime, beating heart of the market. He stretches his arms, noting it feels amazing to be out of Wudong's dull temple. Chiang Su grumbles, reminding him that he is technically an inner disciple disguised as a low-ranking estate steward for this trip. Hui Young just brushes it off, telling him to stop worrying and just enjoy the vibrant view of the city. Chiang Su notices a massive, heavily guarded pile of grain and salt bags ahead, asking what that represents. Hui Young's eyes gleam as he looks at the massive mountain of white gold, stating that it means the salt merchants completely rule this district. Suddenly, a plump, wealthy-looking merchant with a sleek ponytail and a smug face spots them, his eyes lighting up. It is Kang Seon, the lead representative of the Shaanxi Merchant Coalition. He rubs his hands together, loudly greeting Wudong's treasury master. He notes that the Wudong guards they requested for security have arrived safely at the warehouses. But then his face goes dark, a smug, highly punchable grin spreading across his lips as he asks what brings the great treasury master here in person. Chiang Su tries to play it cool, stating they came to buy their annual salt supply, noting that while they declined the advanced futures deal, they never said they wouldn't buy at all. Kang Seon chuckles, crossing his arms and acting like he is doing them a massive favor by even listening. He stands in front of his massive salt barrels, proudly declaring that he cannot lower the official price by a single copper coin. In fact, because they rejected the initial futures contract, they will have to pay a massive, highly inflated premium price to buy now. He stares at Chiang Su, basically saying, "You need our salt, so pay up and shut up." Chiang Su is left completely speechless. But then, Hui Young casually steps in, hands tucked behind his back. He notes that even with the premium, they are still technically buying it cheap. Kang Seon raises an eyebrow, looking down at this disguised steward and asking what a random servant could possibly know about high-level trade. Hui Young just smiles, stating that no merchant in the world gives away a discount out of pure charity. He looks Kang Seon dead in the eye, stating that there is always a catch when a monopoly suddenly lowers its prices. His face turns dark, a terrifyingly sharp grin spreading across his lips as he whispers the secret, like the fact that the open center salt law is about to be completely abolished. Kang Seon's jaw literally drops. Chiang Su is completely flabbergasted, screaming, "What on earth are you talking about?" Chiang Su grabs Hui Young by his shoulders, shaking him and yelling that if the open center system gets abolished, the price of salt nationwide will plummet to less than half its value. He shakes the kid, realizing that the Shaanxi merchants tried to scam the Great Wudong sect into buying a mountain of salt right before a historic price crash. Hui Young just chuckles, noting the treasury master is indeed quick with math. Chiang Su spins around, glaring at the merchant with absolute righteous fury. Kang Seon is sweating bullets, waving his hands frantically and claiming that the abolition of the law is just a baseless rumor circulating in Beijing. He stammers that the imperial court hasn't officially decided yet, so technically, he hasn't actually overcharged Wudong since the old system is still in effect. But then, Huyang shocks everyone by nodding and saying the merchant is actually right. He casually brushes off his robes, noting that since the law hasn't been officially abolished yet, Kang Seon was indeed just selling at the current legal price. Kang Seon sighs in relief, but Chiang Su is still fuming, growling that they could have at least given Wudong a heads up about the policy shift. Huyang turns his back, walking away and noting that spreading imperial court rumors so openly would only invite severe punishment from the government. He notes that, as a merchant, if people are willing to pay a premium for stock, it is your job to sell it to them. Chiang Su looks like he is about to pop a blood vessel. Huyang looks at the panicked merchant, asking if there is nothing they can do for now. The merchant nods frantically. Understood. Let's head out, Treasury Master. Huyang casually trots away, leaving a highly confused Chiang Su standing in the dirt. As they walk through the market, Chiang Su is practically stomping the ground, yelling to ask what on earth Huyang was thinking. If the system is abolished, the price drop won't apply retroactively, meaning Wudong would have lost thousands of silver. He demands to know why Huyang didn't tell him about this secret open center business before they left the mountain. Huyang just looks back, stating it was because Chiang Su was too busy playing the nice, polite customer and was about to hand their entire budget to the merchant on a silver platter. He explains that because Chiang Su played the good cop, the merchant will always remember him as a loyal, sweet customer. Meanwhile, because Huyang played the absolute bad cop who knows his secrets, he has ensured that when the actual negotiation starts, he is the only person the merchant will be desperate to reason with. They sit down at an outdoor food stall. Huyang happily orders a massive plate of hot buns, explaining the trade strategy. Before he can finish his sentence, Chiang Su's fist literally impacts Huyang's head, sending a stream of spit flying. An absolute top-tier physical correction. Chiang Su takes a sip of his tea, grumbling that the kid really has a natural, once-in-a-generation knack for making people want to punch him. Huyang rubs his sore head, picking up a hot bun and muttering that a real master merchant knows how to hit his targets where it hurts. Chiang Su just scoffs, calling him a little menace. He asks what the plan is now. Huyang takes a bite of his bun, stating they do absolutely nothing. The market lasts for 4 days, so they will simply wait. Chiang Su asks what they are supposed to do for 4 whole days. Huyang stands up, suggesting they look around the market, or maybe he stops in his tracks, his eyes locking onto a specific stall in the distance. It is a colorful tangulu stall packed with skewers of candied fruit. Huyang's face lights up like a kid in a gacha game, raising a fist and looking incredibly excited. Chiang Su just stares at him with a dead, highly exhausted expression. He clenches his fist, realizing that this kid's next absolute scheme is already fully loading. Chapter 16. We open Chapter 16 inside a high-end textile shop packed with colorful, expensive silk fabrics. The shopkeeper is rubbing his hands, proudly boasting that all their fabrics are certified as elite grade by the market commissioner himself. Huyang is running his fingers over the silk, looking highly analytical. He holds up a roll of green fabric, confirming that the quality is indeed top tier. He politely asks to look around a bit more. The shopkeeper smiles, bragging that no other stall in the city can match his quality. Treasury Master Chiang Su is standing in the background looking like a husband who has been dragged to a clothing store for 3 hours. He is completely drained. He grumbles, asking if they are seriously just going to browse shops all day. If so, he is going back to the inn to sleep. Huyang looks back, asking if he noticed the secret pattern of the market layout. Chiang Su raises an eyebrow. Notice what? Huyang explains the market hierarchy. The market commissioner is a high-ranking government official who possesses absolute authority over the trade festival. Every single item brought into the city must first be checked and certified by his inspectors into 3 grades: low, medium, or high. Based on this official grade, the commissioner assigns the merchants their physical spots in the market. The high-grade shops get the lucrative, high-traffic prime locations, while the low-grade ones are banished to the dark corners. Normally, if a commissioner is corrupt, he would take massive bribes under the table to give cheap, low-quality goods a fake high grade and a prime spot. But as Huyang sits on a bench, analyzing the layout, he notes that doesn't seem to be the case in Yichang. From what he can see, the local commissioner is exceptionally capable. He has a keen eye for genuine craftsmanship and refuses to sell official grades for cheap bribe money. Hui Young walks over to a weapon rack, picking up a beautifully crafted heavy black sheath sword. He holds it out to Chiang-su, asking him to buy it for him. Chiang-su's eyes narrow, noting that it looks like a highly expensive masterwork sword. Hui Young just flashes a bright smile, telling him to think of it as a necessary investment for their upcoming salt negotiation. Chiang-su sighs, reaching into his coin pouch. He drops several heavy silver coins into Hui Young's waiting palms. Hui Young is practically whistling with joy, happily cradling his new toy while Chiang-su glare at him from behind. He turns back, asking Chiang-su a clever question. According to my explanation, this market's commissioner is highly capable, fair, and hates corruption, correct? Chiang-su nods slowly. Hui Young points out a critical contradiction. The weapon shop where they just bought this masterpiece sword was located in a highly lucrative prime spot. Yet, the shop itself was highly mediocre, mixing high and low quality goods together. To maximize the market's tax revenue, a fair commissioner should have given that prime spot to the absolute best weapon guild in the city. So why did he make such an unprofitable biased decision? Hui Young flashes his signature, highly menacing grin. He taps the sheathed sword, stating that the clue lies in the artisan who forged this specific weapon. Chiang-su checks the sword, admitting it is indeed a fine piece, but asks what the blacksmith's name has to do with anything. He narrows his eyes, focusing on the small engraving near the guard. Engraved on the white metal is the name, Yi Weijong. Hui Young explains that Yi Weijong is an incredibly famous master blacksmith currently active in the imperial capital of Beijing. But what is highly noteworthy is, he points his finger straight down, he was originally born and raised right here, in Yichang. Chiang-su's jaw drops. He realizes what Hui Young is implying. The clean, unbribable market commissioner is secretly giving local Yichang merchants massive favoritism. Hui Young just shrugs, noting it is only human nature to show some warmth and bias toward your own hometown. And because of that deep local patriotism, this sword forged by Yichang's legendary native son is the absolute perfect gift. The commissioner has a keen eye, so he will instantly recognize the masterpiece quality and highly value the artisan's name. It is the ultimate unblockable bribe. Chiang-su is left completely dumbfounded by how a righteous Wudong disciple can plan a government bribe so boldly. He just stares at the kid, utterly speechless. Cut to the grand, three-story administrative estate of the market commissioner. Inside a beautifully decorated guest room filled with tea and mooncakes, the official is greeting them, noting it is an honor to be visited by Wudong's treasury master. He holds up the presented sword, his eyes turning wide with absolute childlike wonder as he recognizes the masterwork of Yi Weijong. He gasps, noting the smith is famous in the capital, meaning this must have cost Wudong a literal fortune. Chiang-su plays along, smiling and claiming they wanted to show proper sincerity. Hui Young immediately takes over the discussion, leaning forward with a sharp grin. He gets straight to the business, bringing up the impending salt price crash and the Gaejung system abolition. The commissioner's face goes dark. He tells them not to worry, claiming he has already made sure to keep the local market brokers strictly in line. He notes that all their registered brokers are Yichang natives, so their local patriotism is absolute. They will absolutely not stand by and let outside merchants disrupt their home province's economy. He smiles, declaring that Wudong has absolutely nothing to worry about. Hui Young's face is covered in shadow, a terrifying, highly victorious grin spreading across his lips. Let us explain how the market broker system works. Brokers act as the vital middlemen between visiting merchants and local buyers. Because dialects, customs, and scales differ across the land, the brokers are the ones who reconcile these differences to ensure fair trade. But if these local brokers decide to make things difficult for a specific merchant, they can easily manipulate the scales, delay certifications, and completely halt their sales. Normally, the rich Shaanxi merchants could try to bribe them to play nice, but with the market commissioner taking such a fierce, patriotic stance against outside exploiters, bribery is completely out of the question. Suddenly, a servant knocks and slides the door open, urgently reporting that a wealthy merchant is causing a massive scene in the courtyard over the market conditions. The commissioner sighs, apologizing and asking them to make themselves comfortable while he goes to handle the disturbance. The wooden doors slide shut with a soft click. Hui Young is casually whistling, looking incredibly relaxed. Chiang-su glares at him, asking why on earth he let the secret salt law info slip to the lay disciples earlier. Hui Young explains that they just shouldn't spread the rumor openly in public since it is a government state secret. But looking at it another way, There is absolutely no issue if they let the information slip indirectly through trusted channels. He points out that many of Wudang's lay disciples are heirs of wealthy local merchant families, making them a massive intelligence asset to the sect. Once Huiyang dropped a tiny hint about the incoming crash to Oju and Hongyang, the entire local merchant network moved as one cohesive unit to protect their financial interests. He pours himself some warm tea, admitting that even he didn't expect the local market brokers to react and strike this incredibly fast. He takes a sip, muttering that if he had known the local network would handle it, he would have spent the expensive sword bribe money on a much better dinner instead. Suddenly, a loud, heavy crash echoes from the courtyard outside. Jiangsu's eyes instantly sharpen. He stands up, telling Huiyang it is time to go. He notes with a grim face that things might not go entirely according to Huiyang's plan. The two of them sprint out of the building, running down the stone steps. Huiyang runs alongside him, asking what the sudden change of mood is about. Jiangsu tells him to look over at the gate. Huiyang raises a hand to block the sun, looking into the distance with a highly confused face. His eyes focus on the shouting crowd. He clicks his tongue, letting out a heavy, annoyed sigh. He can't believe this persistent, highly annoying connection has showed up here of all places. Jiangsu watches the rowdy crowd causing a scene, asking if they are thugs from some unorthodox outlaw sect. Huiyang replies that while they certainly look like absolute lowlifes, they are actually from a highly respected orthodox gate. Jiangsu asks how he can possibly know that. Because I just spotted a very familiar, highly punchable face. Cut to the gate, where the massive, bald bully Sagong Hyun is standing in the middle of the shouting merchants, a menacing, highly victorious grin spreading across his face. Our narrator note, just when Huiyang thought he had the Shaanxi merchants in a perfect checkmate, the unskippable tutorial boss has arrived to flip the board. You'll have to wait until the next batch of chapters to see how our guy handles this bald wrecking ball. Alright, we are back in Yichang, and Treasury Master Jiangsu is staring at the noisy crowd in the courtyard, asking if those troublemakers are from some rowdy unorthodox outlaw faction. Huiyang just watches them with his hands on his hips, noting that while they certainly look like absolute lowlifes, they are actually from a highly respected orthodox gate. Jiangsu is confused, asking how he can possibly know that from a distance. Huiyang grins, stating that he has spotted a very familiar, highly punchable face in the crowd, and of course, the unskippable tutorial boss has arrived. It is the bald bully Sagong Hyun, looking incredibly smug and cracking his knuckles with a terrifying grin. Huiyang's face goes blank, his inner thoughts turning back to the timeline. He remembers that Saigong Hyun left the Wudong Academy immediately after getting completely clowned by Yeo Hongyang and his merchant guards. After seeing the sheer wealth and influence of the merchant king's son in action, there was simply no way a power-tripping bully like him could survive the social embarrassment. But Huiyang sighs, thinking about his absolute bad luck. Of all the mercenary gates in the land, why is this bald fraud the one hired to guard the Shaanxi salt merchants? Meanwhile, the Shaanxi representative Kang Seon is screaming at the market commissioner, telling him to know his place and stop meddling. He complains that even if the Nightwalkers, the local market brokers, are trying to protect Yichang's local vendors, blocking their salt trade is basically telling them not to do business at all. The commissioner stands his ground, looking incredibly calm as he asks why a clean imperial official would have any reason to unfairly interfere with their trade. He glares at the screaming merchant, demanding to know if he has any rock-solid proof of corruption, warning him that insulting a government official carries severe consequences. Kang Seon realizes he has been cornered by the law. He grits his teeth, looking at Sagong Hyun and declaring that since Shaanxi has its own massive political connections, they will handle the local brokers themselves and settle who is right and wrong later. Huiyang stands in the shadow of the doorway, his eyes narrowing as he listens to the merchant's arrogant rant. He takes a slow, heavy step forward, calling out to the group to wait up. He steps right into the middle of the courtyard, posing with his hands on his hips, and noting that if Shaanxi just pushes their way through, the local Yichang vendors are going to get completely ripped off. He flashes a sharp, teasing grin, suggesting the Shaanxi merchants try sticking close to the local brokers and play by the rules instead. Kang Seon's eyes go wide as he recognizes Huiyang, growling that this is the same sketchy Wudong lay disciple who claimed he would buy their salt for cheap. Huiyang just raises his hands, claiming he has absolutely nothing to do with the official market prices. He smiles, stating that he isn't standing here on behalf of Wudong's martial authority either, he is simply standing here as a fellow merchant who respects fair trade. Young delivers a classic economic lecture. He points out that the ancient merchant code states a trader should seek profit through righteousness. So why is Shaanxi using classified government leaks from Beijing to dump their soon-to-be worthless salt and inflict massive financial ruin on Yichang? Kang Seon is about to explode with rage, but Sagong Hyun places a heavy hand on his shoulder, telling him to calm down. The bald bully glares at Young, noting that in the business world, merchants have their own traditional laws to settle disputes. He smiles, telling the merchant to just stand back and watch, because this exact physical confrontation is the reason why he was hired in the first place. He slowly slides his hand off the merchant's shoulder, stepping forward. He cracks his neck, looking incredibly confident as he stands in the center of the stone courtyard. And then, he proposes a classic, legally binding alternative to settle the dispute, a formal proxy war. Young's grin only widens. He agrees immediately, noting that since the Night Watch and the Commissioner are here to witness, they can start the duel right now. Chang-Su is standing in the background looking incredibly stressed as he watches our guy casually walk into a physical fight with a trained warrior. He is internally sweating, wondering what the hell a proxy war actually means in the merchant world. Let us break down the fantasy economics once again. A proxy war is a traditional market dispute resolution system used when right and wrong, victim and perpetrator, cannot be clearly defined by standard imperial laws. Simply put, instead of wasting months in a boring government court arguing about contracts, the two rival merchant guilds settle their trade borders through a direct, physical test of strength between their hired guards. But what exactly does strength mean to a profit-obsessed merchant? Naturally, it means cold, hard cash. If a merchant has deep pockets, they can easily hire the most powerful martial artists in the land to fight on their behalf. Thus, wealthy merchant coalitions frequently use these proxy duels to bully smaller competitors out of the market. But right now, our guy Young has a massive, highly awkward problem. He literally doesn't have a single copper coin to his name to hire a guard, having spent all his savings on his system stats. He is on his own. Sagong Hyun and the merchant are whispering, realizing that even though Young is a Wudong lay disciple, he cannot officially use Wudong's elite warriors for a petty secular brawl. Chiang-Su steps up next to Young, clearing his throat and whispering to him just in case. He tells him flat out that if he was counting on his senior master to step in and save his skin, he should forget it. He turns his glare toward the Shaanxi merchant, repeating the warning. He declares that since Wudong strictly avoids meddling in secular affairs, they will not participate in this proxy brawl. Kang Seon smiles, agreeing that a noble Wudong warrior shouldn't lower themselves to a street fight anyway. He boasts that Shaanxi has prepared their own elite guard for this exact occasion, looking at the hulking bald youth. The commissioner looks worriedly at Young, asking if he needs him to stall for time so he can find a proper mercenary to represent Yichang. Young just chuckles, closing his eyes and waving his hand. He stands tall, declaring that since he came to this market as a merchant, he shall face them as a merchant by fighting his own battle. Sagong Hyun's face is covered in a dark, purple-shaded aura. He smiles like a psycho, stating he has been dying to give Young a proper, bone-shattering beating ever since their academy days. Young just watches his boots, calmly replying that is great for him. He raises his hand, casually beckoning the giant with a finger and telling him to give it his absolute best shot. But before they can clash, a deep, gruff voice calls out, calling Sagong Hyun the young sect leader. They look over to see a rugged, bearded warrior in brown robes entering the courtyard. It is hall leader Hong Munhak of the Rising Thunder Gate, looking highly concerned. He explains that he heard the young sect leader left with the Shaanxi merchants alone, so he came to check on him. He offers to handle the fight himself, claiming the Yichang local merchants won't dare object to his authority. But Sagong Hyun just scoffs, noting that Young barely has any internal chi. He asks why on earth they would use a giant butcher's cleaver to kill a mere chicken. Young just chuckles, walking forward and mockingly noting that he thought the bully was about to switch participants out of pure fear. Sagong Hyun's face turns red, yelling back that he would never pass up a golden opportunity to personally beat Young to a pulp. The commissioner leans in, whispering to ask Young if he is seriously sure about this. Sagong Hyun is the rising leader of a martial gate, not some random street thug he can easily trick. Hui Young just flashes a cool, confident side profile, stating that if it were the veteran warrior Hong Munhak, things might be tricky, but against this bald fraud, it is going to be an absolute breeze. The commissioner sighs, bowing his head and accepting the decision. He steps into the center of the courtyard, raising his hand to officially explain the solemn terms of the proxy war. He yells that the losing side of this duel must grant unconditional, permanent concessions to the winner. If Sagong Hyun wins, the Shaanxi merchants are granted the right to trade freely in Yichang without any local broker mediation or price controls. Conversely, if Hui Young wins, the Shaanxi merchants must fully submit to Yichang's rules and follow the local broker's instructions without a single complaint. He raises his hand high into the air, checking if there are any objections from both sides. "Let the proxy war begin!" Hui Young instantly bolts forward, his boots kicking up a massive shockwave of dust. He smiles to himself, thinking about their last fight. He let Sagong Hyun strike first last time because he was flustered, but in a real match, seizing the initiative is everything. He lunges, his fist flying forward, but steel meets steel as a massive, heavy broadsword suddenly blocks his path with a loud, ringing impact. Sagong Hyun swings the giant blade in a wide, sweeping arc, the air splitting as Hui Young barely leaps back to avoid getting bisected. Hui Young is completely outraged, pointing and screaming to ask where the hell he got a giant broadsword, calling it blatant cheating. Sagong Hyun just laughs like a maniac, noting they never said weapons were banned in a proxy war, bragging that this giant slab of iron has always been his signature weapon. He leaps into the air, performing a massive downward overhead slash, yelling that he will only use the flat of the blade so Hui Young doesn't accidentally die. He lands, his eyes gleaming with absolute malice as he tells Hui Young that if he has a problem with it, he should have brought a sword himself. Hui Young is internally sweating, his face turning pale from the sheer wind pressure. He is backpedaling frantically, thinking to himself that he has never even held a sword properly in this entire life. The giant blade smashes into the stone pavement, the raw impact literally shattering the floor and sending sharp stone shrapnel flying in all directions. The Shaanxi merchant is cheering from the sidelines, pumping his fist and telling Sagong Hyun to go ahead and break the kid's bones. The commissioner looks incredibly worried, turning to Chiang-su and asking if they should stop the fight before the kid gets killed. But Chiang-su just stands there with his arms crossed, calmly stating that Hui Young brought this on himself. Besides, if Wudong steps in to stop the duel, it would mean Wudong's immediate official defeat in the trade negotiations. He takes a slow breath, casually adding that he forgot to mention it earlier, but Hui Young is also a trained disciple of Wudong. Sagong Hyun leaps again, raising his giant broadsword high above his head with a veins-popping grimace. The blade crashes down with a deafening impact, a massive cloud of dust exploding as Hui Young barely rolls away. Hui Young slides on his knees, panting heavily as he tries to keep his distance. Sagong Hyun rests the heavy blade on his shoulder, laughing and asking if running away is the only trick Wudong has taught him. He mocks him, yelling that Hui Young is still nothing but a little rat running around a maze. Hui Young stands up, dusting off his robes and asking what on earth the bully is talking about. He points out that he has been formally training in martial arts for less than a year, so Sagong Hyun should be absolutely ashamed of himself for not landing a single clean hit yet. He smirks, noting that if someone of his pathetic level is the young sect leader, the quality of the Rising Thunder Gate is highly obvious. Sagong Hyun's face literally turns purple with rage, but internally, Hui Young is sweating bullets. He knows he talked big, but his stamina is running low and he is in an incredibly tight spot. During their last academy evaluation, Sagong Hyun's raw speed and power were things he could barely keep up with. If all he had right now was his basic agile movement skill, he would have eventually taken a clean hit and lost miserably. But a sharp, dangerous gleam returns to Hui Young's eyes as he looks at his hands. Things are completely different now. Sagong Hyun's teeth grind so hard they look like they are about to shatter. His bearded senior, Hong Mun-hak, yells for him to control his temper, but the bully is far past the point of reason. He charges forward, his boots tearing up the stone tiles in a blind, furious sprint. He swings the massive broadsword in a lethal horizontal cut, screaming for Hui Young to die as the air literally splits. But as the giant blade approaches his chest, Hui Young doesn't even try to dodge. Sagong Hyun's eyes widen in confusion. Hui Young clenches his fist, a massive surge of spiritual energy wrapping around his arm. His inner system screen flashes once again, displaying his newly purchased skill, Tough Physique. 8. The cheap talent he bought for 2 silver taels to survive Changhwa's brutal beatings is about to pay off in the most glorious way possible. The flat of the giant broadsword smashes directly into Huiyang's chest with a deafening impact, but instead of shattering his ribs, the blade literally bounces off his rock-solid muscles. Huiyang charges straight through the strike, delivering a massive bone-crushing punch directly to Sagang-hyun's jaw. Look at Sagang-hyun's face. His eyes roll back, his spit flying into the air as the sheer force of the counterattack completely shuts down his system. The entire crowd, Chiang-su, the merchant, and Hong Munhak, are standing there with their jaws on the floor, frozen in absolute stunned silence. Sagang-hyun crashes hard onto the stone pavement, completely knocked out cold. His giant broadsword clatters to the ground next to him. An absolute one-shot retirement. Huiyang stands over him, casually flexing his fist and smiling. He notes that while his tough physique was useless against Cheonghwa's godlike acupressure, against a mid-tier brute like Sagang-hyun, it allows him to tank hits and win without a single scratch. He turns back to the shocked crowd, casually dusting off his hands and asking if they shall continue the duel. The commissioner snaps out of his daze, immediately grabbing Huiyang's hand and raising it high into the air, loudly declaring him the official winner of the proxy war. He looks at the pale Shaanxi merchant, declaring that, as agreed, they can no longer exploit the local vendors and must fully submit to Yichang's trade rules. Cut to a few days later, where the peaceful mountain peaks of Wudong are shown under a clear blue sky. Inside Wudong's grand headquarters, Huiyang and Chiang-su are presenting their final report, confirming their salt trade venture came to a highly successful conclusion. The sect leader is staring at the final trade records, his face filled with absolute stunned disbelief. He looks up at Huiyang, his voice shaking as he notes that even by the strict standards of an advance purchase, this kid managed to save Wudong a staggering 300 silver taels. Hashtag Chapter 18. We open Chapter 18 a few days later with a beautiful view of Wudong's peaceful training halls. Huiyang and Chiang-su are still standing in the sect leader's office, concluding their final salt report. The sect leader is looking at the ledger, repeating in absolute disbelief that they managed to save Wudang a massive 300 silver taels on their annual budget. Huiyang just stands there with a smug, closed-eye smile, knowing the market psychology perfectly. No matter how experienced the Shaanxi merchants were, carrying 500 sacks of unsold salt back to their northern border was a massive financial burden they couldn't afford. Ultimately, they were forced to bite the bullet, submit to Yichang's local brokers, and dump their salt at a massive discount, resulting in a 300 silver saving for Wudang. The sect leader stroked his beard, nodding and confirming that as promised, he will grant Huiyang his 5% commission, which comes out to exactly 15 silver taels. Look at Huiyang's face. He is literally kissing the heavy pouch of silver coins, his eyes turned into giant currency symbols. He is basically in financial heaven. The sect leader's expression turns serious. He notes that although Sagang-hyun is the same age, he is the respectable young leader of a martial gate, so defeating him without a scratch is something to be plenty proud of. He looks at Chiang-su, declaring that although it is highly unprecedented, he plans to grant Huiyang a highly special privilege. Chiang-su's eyes widen in panic. He points a finger at Huiyang, proudly declaring that, as of today, he is officially admitting him as a prestigious inner disciple of Wudong. Huiyang's face instantly goes pitch black. He is standing there looking like a character who just pulled a legendary item in a gacha game, only to realize it is completely bound to his account and cannot be sold. The sect leader continues his speech, boasting that it has been nearly 50 years since a secular disciple was promoted to the inner sect. He smiles warmly, telling Huiyang that he should take immense pride as an elite monastic member of the Great Wudong sect. Huiyang's jaw is literally clenched. Our guy takes a slow, heavy breath, asking if the sect leader would grant him one single request first. The sect leader waves his hand, promising to grant absolutely anything within his power. Huiyang slaps his hand over his chest with a loud impact. He looks the Grandmaster straight in the eye and says, "Then please expel me from the sect immediately, without crippling my Dantian." Cut to a scenic view of Wudong's quiet forest, the birds chirping peacefully in the background. And back in the office, the sect leader is standing there looking completely flabbergasted, his brain temporarily short-circuiting. Chiang-su is standing behind them, clutching his head in absolute soul-crushing embarrassment at the kid's lack of survival instinct. The sect leader stammers, asking why on earth he wants to leave the world's greatest sword sect. Huiyang calmly replies that he simply wants to make money. He strikes a proud, heroic pose, declaring with absolute confidence, "Because I like money." The sect leader facepalms, groaning that while a Taoist should distance themselves from secular greed, making money isn't inherently a sin. But he points out a critical problem. Huiyang has already learned Wudong's signature light footwork, the Azure Cloud Step. In the Miram world, no martial sect would ever simply expel a disciple who has learned their secret internal arts. Standard practice to protect their intellectual property is to physically destroy the disciple's dantian, or at the very least, sever their leg tendons so they can never use the techniques again. The sect leader taps his fingers on the table, admitting he is quite baffled because he has never encountered a kid who actively begs to get expelled to go become a merchant. He covers his face, peer over his fingers to think of a compromise. He looks at Huiyang, asking how he would feel about a highly unique ancient compromise. He raises a finger, his expression turning sharp as he names the title. A registered secular disciple. Huiyang tilts his head, looking highly confused. Registered? The sect leader explains the history. Normally, all inner disciples of Wudang must enter their monastic names into the sacred registry scroll at the ancestral hall, a tradition that has continued since the founding ancestors. Because their names are officially recorded, they are referred to as registered, which carries the same prestige and training rights as an inner disciple. But under this compromise, Huiyang would undergo the registration ceremony while technically remaining a secular disciple. He notes that while it sounds highly unusual, this dual system is not entirely without precedent. Over 100 years ago, when the demonic cult rose to power and ravaged the lands, the Orthodox sects suffered massive casualties and lacked capable fighters. Wudang and other major factions created this special registered secular rank to quickly train wealthy merchants and noble heirs, bolstering their forces while allowing them to maintain their business empires. Huiyang sweat drops. Noting that is a story from a century ago. The sect leader explains the terms. A registered secular disciple is allowed to learn Wudong's highest level martial arts, but they also carry the absolute duty to answer Wudong's call in times of crisis. He looks at Huiyang intensely, stating there is absolutely no coercion involved. Huiyang stands in silence, his eyes widening as he processes the massive economic advantages. He is internally screaming, realizing that such a broken pay-to-win loophole is actually possible in this world. If he becomes a registered secular disciple, he can use Wudang's high-level brand name to escort his merchant wagons safely across the country without paying expensive security fees. He can literally hang a Wudong flag over his shops, offering a Wudong special price to instantly attract thousands of loyal, trust-filled customers. He can even sell cheap wooden talismans and souvenirs under Wudong's sacred name, printing money out of pure brand marketing. He can fully enjoy the absolute freedom of a secular merchant while retaining the right to learn high-level martial arts to protect himself. An absolute top-tier corporate hack. He quickly coughs, trying to hide his massive, greedy grin. The sect leader warns him that he must still bring this proposal to the Elder Council and gives Huiyang a strict 3-month grace period to prove his worth. He must prove both his business acumen and his martial talent to the council so the elders cannot oppose the rank. If he fails to prove his worth in 3 months, his options are simple: join the inner sect as a monk forever, or shatter his dantian and leave. Huiyang's smile freezes as the massive reality of the gamble sinks in. But our guy has never backed down from a high-yield trade. He clenches his fist, accepting the terms with a confident grin. Cut to the training fields, where a massive stone slab is shown. And standing next to it is Master Changhua, looking incredibly handsome and smiling like an absolute angel. He cheerfully welcomes Huiyang back, congratulating him on his legendary performance in Yichang. Huiyang is currently carrying the massive heavy stone slab on his back, his legs trembling as Changhua praises his incredible martial talent. Changhua smiles, noting Huiyang is destined to become the greatest inner disciple Wudong has ever seen. Huiyang is internally sweating, glad he kept the registered secular part of the deal a secret, because he can't imagine what kind of dramatic fit his trolling senior would throw if he found out. He drops the massive stone slab onto the floor with a loud, ground-shaking thud. He gasps for air, resting on his knees and counting his reps. That was his 20th set finished. Changhua nods, amazed by his astonishing physical adaptability, noting he used to struggle to move it even once. Huiyang knows it is just his tough physique skill doing the heavy lifting. Changhua declares that his physical foundation is finally established, so they can finally move on to actual sword training. Huiyang is delighted, thinking he is finally graduating from carrying heavy rocks all day. But he knows that to prove his worth to the Elder Council, he has to show them both financial power and martial talent. For the business part, he already has a brilliant plan cooking in his mind. But proving his sword talent is going to be incredibly tricky since he just started training. Manhwa returns, holding a simple wooden practice sword. Young stands tall, ready to finally learn the peerless, legendary sword arts of the Great Wudong sect. But before he can strike a cool pose, Chiangwa's wooden sword sharply impacts the back of his head with a loud crack. Young rubs his sore head, yelling in pain. Chiangwa smiles, telling him he has way too many distracting thoughts. He raises the wooden blade, declaring that today, Young will start by learning the 3 talents sword method. Young's jaw drops, looking incredibly disappointed. He points out that the 3 talents style is a basic, dirt-cheap method sold at every street corner for 3 copper coins. He asks if this is seriously the peerless art he was promised. Manhwa just chuckles, pointing a finger at him and stating that the style he is about to teach him is on a completely different level. Young asks what makes it so different. Manhwa's smile only widens, telling him that is something he must realize on his own through pure, relentless practice. Young sighs, complaining about his senior's vague, head-in-the-clouds teaching style, but Manhwa just tells him his comprehension is lacking. He asks Young if he at least knows the basic forms of the standard 3-talent style. Young nods, explaining that as general knowledge, it consists of 3 basic cuts. Mount Tai crushes the crown for the vertical slash, wind and rain from all directions for the diagonal slash, and sweeping 1,000 soldiers for the horizontal slash. Manhwa smiles, his eyes turning sharp under the sunlight. He tells Young that since he knows the form so well, he should start practicing. Practice every single form 10,000 times each. That is the special 3-talent sword method I will teach you. Young's face completely freezes as the chapter ends. 10,000 swings per form, our guy wanted a quick, easy pay-to-win shortcut, but his trolling senior has just handed him a massive, soul-crushing grind instead. And that wraps up this action-packed double feature. Our guy Young managed to survive his first market war, pocket a sweet 15 silver taels, and secure a historic registered secular rank, but now he has to survive 30,000 sword swings a day just to keep it. Can his min-max stat build handle the grind, or is he going to collapse from exhaustion? You'll have to subscribe and stick around for the next batch of chapters to find out.